This conference will now be recorded.
Perfect. Officially, welcome everyone for our MLOps specialization program, the course demo. We are getting started. Here we go. So thank you so much for joining our demo session. So please make sure you stay till end of this particular program. As I mentioned, why you should not leave this program in between. There are three things. So please, in order to get the most amount of a value, in order to understand what's the world of AI is going to look like for the next 10 to 5 to 10 years, please make sure you stay till end of this program. The second thing is, like, in order to understand what does a career opportunities looks like for the next 5 to 10 years, in order to understand that, make sure you stay till end of this program. And in order to, like, we have arranged an awesome demo on one of a cloud platform, AWS. Yes, in order to enjoy this demo, please make sure you stay till end of this program. Okay, saying that, so let's get started. So let's try to understand how we can able to navigate into MLOps and LLMOps, unifying ML and Gen AI deployments. Okay, let's get started. So before we getting started, a quick introduction about me as your trainer, right? Okay, here we go. So let's try to, yeah. Hey folks, yeah, this is Sharad Kumar. I'm a founder and CEO of Citron Technologies. I will be your trainer for this demo session. So this demo is for the next 2 hours. Please make sure you stay till end of this program. So so we are the experts into ML and AI and MLOps, anything related to the cloud and open source. So you can just Google us more about www.citrontechnologies, yeah, citrontech.com. You can learn more about it. So I have personally helped peoples like you, obviously, like more than 5,000 peoples like you want to become a specialist in MLOps and want to be a lead positions in AI industry. Yep, so you can learn more about us in our website. Saying that, so without wasting much of a time, let's get started. So I'm going to turn off my camera, otherwise you'll be having my face feed towards the right side. You don't want to be interrupted with that. So let's get started. Okay, what are we going to dive into this 2 hours? Okay, these are the three important stuff that we will be discussing throughout this particular demo session. So what is really the MLOps is all about? Okay, one second, let me just pick my marker. Okay, here we go. So what is really MLOps is all about? How, why it is really important in the world of delivering the models to production, or in the world of automating your ML models, or maybe in the world of Gen AI, right? So what it takes to master MLOps for you. Okay, what it takes to master MLOps for you, and what does the career opportunities looks like in MLOps. Okay, so before we getting started, here's a one question that I would like to ask. Let me just try to understand you folks much better, because I can able to get some of informations about you. Like, let's say, try to understand who are you from, like what kind of a domain that you're coming from, so I can set threshold in my brain accordingly, so I can deliver the content. Okay, so probably you might be a student, you might be a data scientist, you might be a DevOps engineer, solution architect. Just mention what role you are. So just mention your role in a chat window, what kind of a work that you do. That really helps me to understand so who you are. So just go ahead and please do use your chat window. Just describe. Okay, just describe. You are you a developer? Just say developer. Are you a DevOps engineer? Just say you're a DevOps engineer. Are you a data scientist? Just say you're a data scientist. Go ahead, use your chat window. Just describe who you are. Here we go. That's awesome. I can see a lot of messages. I can see them. I can see a lot of people from data science roles, a lot of people from ML. DevOps engineering. I can see a lot of people from developer background, AI, ML engineers. That's awesome. So we do have a mixed quality of audience here. So let me just make sure that I distribute this content accordingly, which can able to really fit in for all of you folks. Okay, so let's get started. Thank you so much. Use your chat window, try to describe who you are. Okay, so let's get started with our program right now. Okay, here we go. I'm getting started with our first slide. Okay, what is this slide? Okay, do you think is this slide is somewhere related to what we're going to discuss about MLOps, AI, Gen AI, all the stuff? Definitely yes. Okay, here is a question that I would like to ask. Any program that we conduct, we start from this beautiful slide. Okay, so let's discuss something about this particular slide. Okay, tell me, what do you think this picture is about? Pretty much simple question. Try to describe this picture in your chat window. So what kind of objects that you can able to find in this particular picture? Try to describe. Can you see what kind of an objects? Can you recognize what over there? Yeah, here we go. Like Joseph says there is a dogs. Okay, and again Joseph says a kind of a dog show, he says. Okay, that's awesome. So here we have Bandira says peoples and dogs breeds. Okay, that's awesome. Rohini says peoples with sunglasses and dogs. Awesome. Arun says dark part. What awesome description. Aha, that's awesome. Here we have Muhammad says people's doing everything, walking with their pets. That's awesome. That's awesome. Okay. Okay, we know that there's a picture of a park. There's no doubt about it, right? So we can see there are dogs, even a different breeds of dogs, right? Not just one breed of dog. There are different breeds of dogs, and obviously there's a peoples. There's a men. There's a women. There are people sitting and enjoying their time in a park, and there is a path where we can walk, and there are a lot of trees outside, right? Obviously, this is something that we know. We could able to recognize that. So so what do you mean by that? So obviously, but the question is this. I want to ask an alternative question. Let's see if you can able to answer this. Okay. So pretty much the question is, how do you know this is a picture of a park? You say this is a dog, right? You say this is a picture of a man and picture of a woman. How do you know this is how the dog looks like? Who thought it? Why can't this be a cat? Why can't this be a cow, right? So why can't this be an alien? Okay, I'm just kidding. But the question is, let's say, how do you know this is a picture of a park? How do you know this is a picture of a dog, right? Who taught you that? So obviously, like we are the best examples of what we are talking about AI today, right? We are the examples of artificial intelligence. But just consider that. So we are biological machines. We could able to learn the data, right? So let's talk about in more detail in the next slide. Okay, let's go. Let's get into the next slide. Okay, here is my question. So let's say I'm going to take the same picture. I'm going to take a same picture. I'm going to display the same picture to this newborn baby. Do you think this baby could able to recognize the same exact things that you could able to recognize? I mean, can this baby say this is a picture of a park, this is a dog, this is a cat, this is a tree, this is a path where we can walk? Definitely not. So, but what happens? Let's say a baby, barely a newborn baby, which is less than 1 year old, could able to recognize his mother and father. But apart from that, the baby doesn't know anything else, right? But what if I display the same picture to this maybe a kid, which is a grown-up kid, maybe a 5 years old? Yes, maybe he could able to recognize it, right? So, but let's say what I'm trying to explain, consider that we are the best examples of AI, what we're talking about as a biological machines. We could able to learn a data in many different ways, right? So consider that, let's say eventually by learning this data, we get better, right? So I mean, we consume a data in many different fashions. I mean, we consume a data through our eyes. Visually, we can consume a content. We can see the objects. We could recognize what does this object looks like, right? We could able to consume a data through our ears, audio, right? I can able to hear the beautiful song, right? I can hear the music, right? Here we go. And then I can consume the data through our nose, isn't it? So I mean, I can consume the data through nose. I can smell the things. I can able to understand how the biryani smells like, right? So I can smell that it's a biryani. I could recognize it's a biryani. Similarly, I can consume a data through a sense. While touching the things, I can able to consume I can able to consume what kind of object that could be, right? So as a human beings, we consume a data and we eventually will get better, right? So consider that in this baby's perspective, in the entire the growth cycle of a human being, how does it looks like? Let's say we start learning things, like we started learning things from our parents. Our parents are first teachers. We started learning things from books. We learn mathematics, physics, whatever it is, the chemistry, and then we finally will go to a higher education. We learn data science, then we will land into data science jobs. Okay, so those are things are there. So obviously, like, I mean, let's say if I put the entire growth cycle of a human being in a graph, the knowledge that we learn is exponentially grows up. So each and every day we learn something from our books, from your job, and eventually we get better. And based on the data that you learned, you can able to make a predictions. You can able to make a decisions for your future. So one of the best example that I would like to say, you made your decision to spend your valuable 2 hours with me, because that's a decision that you took in order to in order to believing that, let's say, I could able to deliver a quality content. You believe AI is a future. That's why you are here to learn the things. That's another example, right? We could able to make a decisions. We could able to predict what's going to happen in the future, right? So that's the same thing what human beings are trying to replicate today. In the same way you could able to learn a data, and eventually you could able to understand the patterns, and you can able to make a decisions, and you can able to make a predictions for the future. We want to teach the same exact things to these dumb machines. Yes, the same data that we have taught it, that we have learned, we want to teach this to these machines, and these machines can able to make a decisions and predictions behalf of you, right? So let's throw a very simple example where everyone could able to understand this. Okay, so I'm going to talk about a data set. Let's say consider that this can be any data. Let's say I'm going to talk about a simple CSV file. Okay, we do have a CSV file. In this CSV file I have around 30,000 rows of data, and this data is around 3 years old data. But what is this data is all about? Okay, so this data is all about the electricity consumption in your home. So this data has how much voltage, the current, the bills that you might have paid for the last 3 years. Okay, so I collected data from your home, for example. Okay, so my goal is pretty much simple. I want to take this data, I want to teach this data to a machine. A machine can be a server in the cloud, it can be your own personal computer, it can be any edge devices like this. Okay, so what happens? AI is all about, it's a game of teaching data to a machine. Okay, so I'm going to teach this data to this machine. So this data has some patterns. What do you mean by patterns? Let's say this data has a patterns of how you consume electricity. Consider that how you consume electricity in summer, how do you consume your electricity in winter, how do you consume your electricity in spring, right? So machine tries to understand everything, and it creates something called an ML model, which is going to be part of final end product. Okay, so now once I have this ML model, I can ask a few questions to this ML model. This ML model can able to make decisions and predictions behalf of me. So let's say I'm going to ask this ML model to make a forecast. What do you mean by that? I want to make a forecast for the next 6 months. What will be my electricity bills that I'm going to pay? So what will be the first month bill looks like? What is the second month bill going to look like? And what is a 6th month bill is going to look like? So it's all about how, let's say I'm going to ask my machine to make a forecast or a prediction saying that what will be my next 6 months bill looks like. Isn't it awesome? Just imagine that through this you can able to predict what will be your electricity bills for the next 6 months, right? Just consider this kind of a use case in the big organizations and MNCs. This can literally help them to save a lot of money on the electricity, so they can able to understand where they are actually spending more electricity, right? So this can be a one problem statement that you can able to solve, right, for example. But the problems that you can solve in AI is endless, right? We are talking about computer vision, NLP, right? Large language models, for example, right? So let's talk about a computer vision for an instant. Okay, so let's say I, instead of teaching some tabular data, I want to teach the difference between a cat and a dog. Let's say I'm going to take a bunch of pictures of a cat and dogs. I'm going to teach the difference between a cats and dogs to my machine. So my machine could able to understand how does dog looks like, how does a cat looks like. Okay, so once my machine learns the data again, it's going to produce an ML model, and I'm going to put up a camera in front of my machine. So then my machine is going to, then I'm going to put a cat in front of my a camera. So then my machine is going to make a predictions. There is a cat which is standing in front of your camera. So what we call it as object detection. So it can able to detect an object in front of that particular camera, right? So face recognition systems that you do have in your phone are maybe anything that we call it as a face recognition system. Let's say object detection, for example, scenery detection, celebrity recognitions, for example, anything, right? So what I'm trying to mention here, so let's say a machine similar to way we could able to learn a data in many different ways. We can consume a data through our visual eyes, through our nose. I can consume a data, I can able to consume a data through our ears. Similarly, a machine can able to consume a data in many different patterns. I mean, your machine can consume a data which looks in a pictures. It can be JPGs, it can be tabular data like CSV files, or you can machine can able to consume a data through JSON documents, or it can be a text file, for example. Okay, let's talk about right now what does a typical workflow looks like for creating a successful machine learning model. I'm not talking about the complete pipelines. I'm not talking about building complete automation for delivering your ML or large language models. I'm talking about what does a minimal requirement looks like. Okay, so as I mentioned already, machine can also consume a data in many different ways. Okay, so what is a first step in order to build a typical workflow of a machine learning model? So first step is what we call it as data preparation. So what do you mean by data preparation? So data preparation is similar to what we do in a kitchen. So is there any chef here? Do you cook food? Yeah, so I'm not. I could lightly, but not an expert. But what do we do if you want to prepare your favorite recipe, right? So let's say what do we do first step? We go to a market, we buy some vegetables. Yep. So then what we do? We started cleaning that vegetables, right? We start cleaning vegetables. I mean, we remove unnecessary stuff. then we cut it, then we started putting oil, the ingredients and masala, then we started preparing our food, right? So your favorite recipe. So that's what exactly we do in a data preparation also. Like what happens, the raw data that is coming from your customers, that comes with a lot of garbages in it. I mean, it will have missing values, it will have outliers. So what our data engineer will do, this is where our data engineer will come to the picture. So he will be started cleaning that data, preparing that data, and transforming that data however you want. That's what exactly we do in a data preparation. Then comes what? So then we will be using an IDEs like Jupyter Notebooks, a VS Code. Just consider what are the IDEs that we do have, where our data scientists or data engineers, they can write a code, for example, right? Okay, so let's say, why do we write a code? Writing a code, is that mandate? Yes. So when it comes to building our models, yes, it is mandate. But what do we write in this code basically? So consider that, what is the game that we are playing here? The game is all about taking a data, teaching the data to a machine. That's what exactly we're doing. Let's say if you want to take a data, if you want to teach the data to a machine, so you need to mention what kind of a machine you're using, right? So you need to mention whether you're using a CPU, whether you're using a GPU, where is your data is coming from, what kind of an algorithm that you're using. So all those things has to be mentioned somewhere. This is where we write a code and we mention everything. Consider that we picked a machine. It can be a CPU or GPU, whatever it is, right? According to the use case. Let's say we are using a CPU based machine. I'm going to grab all the data that I prepared and I'm going to start teaching a data to a machine. So what happens here? Your machine will start learning a data. It will try to understand a pattern. Then what happens? It will then, so basically we'll be having something called training data, the data that we kept it for training, and we will be having something called test data, the data that we kept it for testing. So we test the model with the test data, and based on the results, if you're really satisfied with the result, then you take that model for the next step for the deployment. Okay, what happens next? So consider that you have your ML model. So now it's time for you to go ahead and register this ML model to something called model registries. What do you mean by model registries? Consider that throughout the life cycle of your ML project, you are not going to produce only one ML model. Are you going to produce only one ML model? Definitely not. You're going to produce multiple versions of it. Let's say version 1, version 2, version 3, blah, 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 version N. You're going to produce multiple versions of your ML models. So then what is the best tool that we can able to use in order to version these ML models and metadata of these ML models? This is where model registry tools comes into the picture. So we register our ML models in a model registry. Then comes what? Then we pick the best performing model. Let's consider that version 3 is performing really good. So then we take the version 3 of an ML model. Then we plan for that, go ahead and deploying for the production. So consider that if you're going to deploy your ML model to production, each and every organizations, they might follow different strategies for that. So maybe I want to Dockerize my ML model like this. I want to deploy to the Docker platform, maybe to the Kubernetes infrastructure. Maybe I will deploy it to my real-time endpoint, to the batch prediction, to the serverless endpoint. So there are different opportunities where you can able to deploy your ML model. Consider that in this perspective, I Dockerize my ML model and I deploy it on a Docker platform. Good. What happens next? Now your model is running on a Docker. So now comes our developers. This is where your developers going to create a beautiful web applications and Android applications. So this by using this client side applications, we'll be invoking our ML models that is deployed in a containers. So what happens? Here comes your customers is going to input some data and they're going to generate a predictions. That's all how it looks like. Okay, so this is what the typical workflow of creating a machine learning workflow, machine learning models will look like. But this is not what exactly the complete MLOps is all about. There's a minimal requirements. Okay? So here comes the role of our data engineers and data scientists. What they will be doing, they will be writing a Python scripting for building these ML models, preparing the data, building these ML models. They will be using a range of programming languages. It can be Python or JavaScript, even C++ is possible today, right? Okay, but the question remains still unanswered. What is really MLOps is all about, right? What does MLOps stand for? Machine learning operations it is. But before we getting started, okay, so let's try to understand the current state of machine learning in this entire world. Yes, I'm talking about what is the current state of machine learning in this entire world. So what's every organization in this world is doing? Okay, let's get some energy. I will have some water now. Okay, great. I had my water. So what I'm talking about, the current state of machine learning It's all about, I'm talking about what's every organization is doing in terms of building their ML models. In order to do that, in order to understand this, let's go back for last decade. Let's do a time travel and let's get into the last decade. Last decade, let's consider that last 10 years ago or last probably 15 years ago, most of the organizations, they had a lot of data sitting in their organization, but they started building ML models. They started hiring a data engineers and data scientists who can able to build an ML models, but they are not operationalizing that ML models to production. What do you mean by that? They don't have any plans to deploy the models to the production. They don't have an idea what to do with these models, how they're going to generate a revenue out of it. So everyone last 10 years ago, they're building ML models, but they're not productionizing it. So by today and end of 2023, already 53% of organizations, they started pushing their POCs, the proof of concepts, into production. They started doing that. By an average, it takes around 9 months for every organizations to reach to that particular position, obviously. But let's talk about what's going to happen next. By end of 2024, let me just repeat, end of 2024, I'm not talking about next 5 years ago. By end of this year itself, you can expect 75% of organizations who are just building models, they will be moving their POCs to production. They will be started operationalizing their AI. What do you mean by that? So you have an ML model. Consider that any organization who has a proper, the well accurate ML model, that doesn't mean that an organization has attained the success. No, until unless they don't have an automation in order to deliver their ML models to production, they cannot succeed. This is where MLOps comes into the picture. So what is really MLOps is all about? MLOps stands for machine learning operations, which is all about collaboration and communication between the different stakeholders who are part of building ML projects. What do you mean by stakeholders? Like, who are the peoples? Yeah, here we go. Like, data scientist is not the only person who is responsible for the success here, but there are different stakeholders. Data engineers are there who will be working on, let's say, preparing a data, cleaning a data. Data analysts are there. Data scientist is someone who builds an ML model, obviously, who takes a data from data engineers. Then we call it as ML engineers. ML engineers are someone we call it as deployment peoples. They take a model from a data scientist, they go ahead and deploy it to the production. So then comes MLOps engineers, otherwise what we call it as operational professionals. So MLOps engineers are someone who builds the pipeline, someone who architects the pipeline. There are lead positions in MLOps. So which cloud you're going to use, which open source tool that you're going to use, the workflow is going to be built by an MLOps engineers basically. Okay, so MLOps is all about collaboration and communication between the stakeholders. Okay, so by applying this MLOps practices, you can able to increase the quality and simplify the management process of how you build, train, and deploy your ML models to production actually. So MLOps, putting it in a very simple layman terms, it's all about building an automation to deliver your deep learning models or your machine learning models to large scale production environment. That's what exactly MLOps is all about. So let's try to understand MLOps motivation in a high level. Okay, let's get started. So MLOps, as I mentioned, it's a discipline that sits intersection between various domains. For example, it's an intersection between a machine learning, DevOps, and data engineering. So what we call it as MLOps, right? So let's say this intersection of these practices, when they are coming together, it really drives a value in how you build, deliver, and manage your machine learning models to production. So MLOps as a discipline, obviously it will be enabled by the core set of practices, because if without having people's process and technology, this can't be happening, right? Yeah, so now let's talk about the challenges. Okay, what are the challenges industries are facing today in terms of implementing MLOps? What is a skill gap, for example, all those stuff. Okay, so let's get started. Obviously, in the process of let's say creating and managing machine learning workflows, we definitely ran into a lot of different challenges. So we know that ML model building involves multiple steps. For example, there are steps like data preparation, model training, and model deployment basically. So not only we have these steps, and there are really lot goes into stitching these things together. So I mean, we want to stitch data preparation with model training with model development. Okay, let's get into each and everything one by one. So what do we do in data preparation? So in a data preparation step, let's say it might contain one to many tasks, like taking a raw data and we eventually transform the data into training data, validation data, and test data. It's like splitting the raw data into multiple chunks. Okay, that's what we do. Then comes in a model training step. So what do we do in a model training step? In a model training step, you might have some additional steps inside your model training. So whether you're doing a single model training, or you might be running a hyperparameter optimization, experimentation basically. See, let's try to understand one thing. Model building is an exercise, is an experiment. It's not a one-time thing, it's an experiment. So what our data scientist will be doing, data scientist will be experimenting. He cannot build successful ML model in one single shot. He will be keep on optimizing, hyperparameter tuning in order to get the best quality ML model. So consider that he might be producing multiple versions of ML models, version 1, 2, version 3, for example, right? So then he will be having a chance to pick the best performing model from the different versions that he has trained, and then he can take that ML model further for the deployment. Okay, so now let's assume that our data scientist has a best quality ML model. Now let's talk about the model deployments side. In your model deployment side, you might have only one step in a workflow, yes, or it could have many tasks underneath it. Let's say for example, if you want to deploy your ML model to different stages, consider that you want to deploy your ML model to staging environment, or you want to deploy it to the production environment, for example, right? Or you want to have a more control in it, for example, right? So for example, let's discuss further. Let's say you decided that version 3 is really performing good, you love it. Now you want to deploy the version 3 to production, right? But you don't directly deploy to the production. No, that's not how it works. So you will be having a multiple stages in between. So initially what you will be doing, so you will be deploying your ML model to something called a staging environment. Let's say we call it as a stage. So what is the staging environment? Is nothing but the staging environment is only for your internal team. So consider that initially you deploy your version 3 of your ML model to a staging environment. So where your senior data scientist or data scientist, whoever responsible, they comes to the staging environment, they test their ML model in a production view. What do you mean by that? Staging environment is an exact copy of a production environment, but it is not accessible by your customers. Let's say your staging environment is basically accessible only for your internal team. If you do further testing, if you're really satisfied, okay, if you're really satisfied with the performance of a ML model in a staging environment, then further you'll be deploying the same ML model to the production environment. So that's how it's going to work. So once the model has been released to the production environment, this is where your client can able to start interacting with that. So final end customers can able to interact with that. But not only this, but you need a more control over it. So, but you don't want to automatically your models to be deployed to your staging environment or production environment, but you want to have a manual control on that. What do you mean by that? We call it as manual approval. So consider that if you want to deploy your ML model to your staging environment, so let's say your stakeholders, for example, a senior data scientist or whoever who has a permission to that, they need to approve your ML model to be deployed to the production. So the same thing happens for the let's say the production also. Let's say here we need to approve your ML model in order to deploy to your staging and production environment. So as I mentioned, so there are a lot of different steps, lot of different dependencies has to work together to ultimately, let's say, build this and build out something that provides, let's say, iteration across the life cycle, and also to provide end-to-end traceability to track your model that you're trained, that you're deploying it on a staging environment, that you're deploying it on a production environment. So what do you mean by end-to-end traceability? So monitoring. So monitoring your complete infrastructure, including the model that you're deployed to the production, is really important. So this is where the tools that comes to related to monitoring your infrastructure, the tools that we use for monitoring your ML models that we use deployed to the production basically. Okay, so this is the common challenges that we do have, but let's say how are we going to address this challenges? This is where the different tools that is there in the market that comes into the picture. So let's get started. Let's try to understand another term. See, whenever we talk about MLOps, you might be relating that with another term called DevOps. So few people says this, okay, yeah. So is this DevOps and MLOps, are they same? Definitely not. DevOps is completely different and MLOps is completely different than DevOps. but there are some common things, there are some common tools related to DevOps. So let's say, for example, the challenges that we do have in operationalizing ML models has a lot common with the software production also. Let's say in DevOps, we'll be using CI/CD practices, for example. We'll be using source and version control practices. We'll be using a CI/CD tools. We'll be using a source version control tools. Those tools are pretty much common in MLOps also. We do use same tools here. So, but the problem is, you know, that lot of times the CI/CD tools are not necessarily built for machine learning separately. In reality, what happens, folks, you might use different combinations of tools and integrations. Sometimes they are purpose built. Maybe you might be having a purpose built tool for data preparation, model training, and model deployment. So all of this, you know, that can be complicated and challenging to stitch together. And more complicated than this, there is no golden pipeline that you can follow. So what do you mean by that? Let's say today, if I'm going to draft an architecture, so this is how the architecture looks like in terms of building automation for delivering your ML model. Not every organization, they cannot follow the same architecture, because the requirement for technical implementations for your organizations can be different. Your organization structure can be different. So maybe tomorrow the organization that you're going to work, they might be using AWS, or they might be using Azure or GCP, or they might be using open source tools. So the tools they have, their requirements can be different. Okay, so what is so much common is going to be the steps and core components that I recommend in this program is going to be more common in every machine learning workflows in every organization. Okay, so it's time to have a story. Okay, so let us discuss a very simple story which can able to give a complete clarity of this MLOps. Okay, let's get started. Let's go back to year 2020, folks. Okay, so let's go back to year 2020. So what are we going to do in 2020? So let's say in a 2020 there is a data scientist. Okay, let's say there is a data scientist. He is building an ML model for a theater owners. He's building an ML model for theater owners. He's building this ML model to predict how much tickets they're going to sell for a movie, or by this ML model they can able to predict how much money they can able to make by selling the tickets. Okay, so this is in year 2020. Our data scientist, yes, he has built a very best quality ML model, but he didn't implemented any MLOps practices, no MLOps at all. He done everything manually. He has prepared a data manually, trained it manually, and he went and deployed his ML model manually. But this data scientist assured that particular client this model is going to perfectly work fine for the next 3 years. Okay, that's what exactly his promise is for the client. But this model just got failed in next 3 months itself. So what could be the possible reason why this model got failed? You know what happened in year 2020? That's the time the world has been hit by COVID, right? So peoples who are going for theaters, they started gradually reducing for going for theaters, right? So the model that he has trained has been deteriorated, right? So what I'm trying to explain here is nothing but, so consider that your customer behavior is changing. The peoples are going for theaters now, they stopped gradually going for theaters. That means your customer behavior is changing. This data scientist didn't implemented any model monitoring tools in order to monitor the behavior of your customers. In case if this data scientist could able to implement any model monitoring tools, he could able to came to know that your customer behavior is changing. Okay, another thing that we need to discuss, your customers are your data, there's no doubt about it, right? Your customer behavior is changing, that means your data is changing, right? It is also really important when it comes to the MLOps perspective, versioning your data. So tracking and versioning your data. So there are range of different tools that is outside in the market that we can able to use in order to version a data. For example, if I want to mention a pretty much very famous open source tool, it's called DVC, which we can able to use it in order to version your data, right? So then comes what? So consider that, let's try to understand another side of a story. In case if this data scientist could have implemented an MLOps practices, he could have started versioning his data. And consider that as a data scientist, you will be writing a lot of code, and you know that the code that is written will definitely change. Tell me, like, you folks are maybe a data scientist, there might be a lot of developers, DevOps engineers. Tell me how many times the code that you might have written has been changed. definitely multiple times. So this is where we use tools like GitHub, for example, source version control tools in order to version your code, right? You might use the source version control tools in AWS or Azure GCP, right? Okay, let's try to understand the next thing. So versioning your ML models and model artifacts is also really important, because consider that in case if your data is changing, that means your model will also change, because you need to take the new customer behavior data, you retrain it, you produce the newer version of your ML model. So you might have different versions of ML models. And again, how are you going to version these ML models? You can ask me one question here. Sharath, why can't we use GitHub itself to version your ML models? Definitely not. GitHub is not made for versioning your ML models. We need a dedicated tools, what we call it as model registries, to version your ML models. You need to version your ML model, your metadata along with that. So this is where we will be using a range of different tools in order to solve different problems, basically, right? So then comes end-to-end traceability that I'm talking about, because you will be having a complete infrastructure where you need to monitor, because you'll be having a CI/CD pipelines, you'll be having you have your infrastructure where you have deployed your ML models that you need to monitor, right? So this is where the tools that we use for infrastructure monitoring, the tools that we use for monitoring your ML models also comes into the picture. Okay, so we got it. Now let's get into the next step. So what it takes to master MLOps, basically, right? What it takes to master MLOps. Let's get into the discussion right now. Let's talk about an MLOps components in detail. So what are the different components that we do have in the process of implementing MLOps? So let's get started with the use case discovery, right? So obviously, any organization who has an access to the data resources, they have an enough data, then only they can get started with the AI solution they want to develop. So then comes a data engineering. So this is where we build a data pipelines to harvest the data for an organization. So then comes building a machine learning pipeline. This is where we do an automation for the process of we building, training, and registering your ML models. So then comes production deployment pipelines to deploy your ML model to production. Then comes production monitoring. If we dig into each and every components here, the first thing we start from a business understanding, right? So first, any organization might have a proper use case to get started. They need to understand the use case, first of all, data understanding, because and in case of an organization that doesn't have an access to the data, or an organization doesn't have an access to the data in the future also, they don't have any plans to harvest the data, there's no meaning of talking about AI or ML or MLOps at all, right? So they need to do all the feasibility study, then only they can able to get started. The first step in a workflow is obviously we'll be doing a data preparation, so cleaning a data, preparing and transforming. So then comes we'll be picking a right algorithm that matches your use case to solve that particular problem. So once you have an algorithm and a data, this is where we will be getting started with the model building exercise. So as I mentioned, building a model is an experiment. You cannot build ML model in one single shot. So you'll be doing experiment. You will be optimizing your hyperparameters and you'll be doing multiple iterations to get the best quality ML model. So consider that you have a best quality ML model right now. So then here you'll be doing something called model evaluation. So model evaluation is all about testing your ML model, extracting the metrics that helps you to understand whether it's the best model, can you go ahead and deploy it to the production or not. So once you evaluate it, then you'll be planning for a model serving. So that the plan for you going ahead and deploy the model to the production. So this is where you will be using, let's say, a CI/CD pipelines, basically, which the tools that we use for deploying your ML models to production. So maybe you want to Dockerize your ML model, then you want to go ahead and deploy your ML model to the production. This is where we started building an automation, basically, right? So then comes you deploy your ML model in a production, you operate it. So then through an operation, we will be including a model monitoring tools in order to monitor your ML models, which is in a production, and also monitoring your ML models, also monitoring your complete infrastructure. So you'll be learning a lessons from the models that you're going to monitor, and based on those lessons, you will be keep on optimizing your ML models in a production, basically. Okay, so this is how the MLOps components looks like. Okay, now let's get into the very, very important slide. In this slide, you can able to get a complete clarity of what exactly the world of automation looks like in AI industry. Can we get started? Here we go. Let me just have some water. Yeah. Okay. So basically here we're going to talk about automated ML pipelines versus a CI/CD ML pipelines. See, every organization now they are trying to move from automated ML workflows to completely incorporated CI/CD pipelines basically. So this is a traditional way of we building ML model. So we take a data, we do data preparation, build your ML model, then go ahead and deploy. But there's no much automation there. But this is where we want to incorporate the complete CI/CD practices. So let's get started from here. Okay, so first we will be getting started with the ML project identification. Obviously, we don't want to get into that story. Every organization, they will be having a use case. Okay, great. So now let's get into the part of a data. So obviously, we do have an understanding. Your data will change. Your customer behavior, in case if your customer behavior is changing, your data will be changing. That means we do have an understanding. It's really important to version your data. So we'll be using range of different data version control tools to version a data. So one of a tool, as I mentioned, you can use tools like DVC for versioning your data. Or every cloud platform today, they have their own data version control tools. Okay. So then comes data pre-processing. So what do you do in a data pre-processing? You take a data, you clean it, transform it. So here, our data engineers or data scientists, they will be writing a lot of Python code. Okay. And the code that you write will definitely change in the future. You know that. Then how are you going to manage the version of that? So this is where we'll be integrating the code repositories, a specific dedicated tools for versioning your source code. GitHub, code commit in AWS, Azure repos in Azure, or cloud source repositories in GCP. Then comes what? You have a code, then what is the next step? So you want to write a code for building your ML model. This is where your data scientist comes into the picture. He'll be writing a source code for building his ML model. So in this source code, he will be mentioning what kind of a machine I'm using, whether I'm using a CPU, GPU, what are the hyperparameters, all those stuff. Okay. And this code also to be versioned because this code also going to change in the future. So what is the next step? This is where we will be started building your ML models, training, taking a data and teaching this data to a machine. So what we call it as model training. So in order to train your ML models, you need something called features. What is features? Let me just throw a very simple example. Consider that we want to train an ML model to predict an electricity bills. So the kind of a features that we want my machine to understand, the amount of current, the bills that you might have paid, or maybe the voltage that you consumed in a previous months. So this is a data the machine has to learn, right? So these are the features that my machine want to learn. So I'm going to fetch these features from something called feature stores. So what is this feature stores? Putting it in a very simplest fashion, feature stores are basically a schema repositories. Feature stores are not databases where we're going to fetch a data, but in a feature stores, you will be having just a features. You can able to version your features in a feature store. Consider that by using voltage, current, and bill amount, this can be my version 1 of my feature. Voltage, current, bill amounts, and power, this can be a version 2 of my feature. I can use different versions of a features to solve different problems actually. Okay, so I'll be using my features to fetch features along with the data. Okay, so here comes, I will be using a feature stores to extract the features. Okay, what happens next after you training your ML model? Once you have a right kind of a features, this is where you will be producing the model artifacts. So what is this model artifacts? Model artifacts are basically combination of your ML models and the metadata that you get along with your ML model. And how are you going to version your ML models? Because throughout the life cycle of your ML model, you're going to produce multiple versions of your ML models. So this is where model registries comes into the picture, a dedicated tools that we can able to use in order to register your ML model. If I want to throw one example, ML Flow. The ML Flow is a very famous open source tool that is outside in the market that you can able to use for registering your ML model and also to version your experiments. But every cloud has their own model registries today. It can be AWS SageMaker, Vertex AI in GCP, or it can be let's say Azure Machine Learning Studio. So then comes what? The deployment. Okay, so this is where we'll be planning the deployment part. So let's say if you want to deploy your ML model, this is where we integrate CI/CD process. Let's say here we want to Dockerize your ML model, then you want to go ahead and deploy it to your Docker platform, Kubernetes infrastructure. Let's say you want to deploy it to the real-time endpoint, to your mobile phones, to IoT devices. Possibilities are endless, right? So then we start integrating it, then we start operating it in a production after deployment. Okay, so then comes the production monitoring. So the end-to-end traceability I'm talking about. So you do have two things here. You have an infrastructure that you have built for versioning a data, code, training your ML models, model registries. You need to monitor the complete infrastructure, including the models that you are deployed in a production. So here comes something called a feedback loops. So what is this feedback loops? We have something called automated quality gates here. You have an automated quality gates at the time of verifying your ML model, and automated quality gates at the data preparation side also. So what do you mean by this automated quality gates? This automated quality gates can really helpful for you to make a decision whether it's the best model, can you go ahead and deploy your ML model to prediction or not. So always your data scientist will be sticking to something called metrics to take a decision. So for example, let's say I'm training a regression model. I do calculate something called MSE score. So I stick to my MSE score as a threshold. If my MSE score is less than or equal to 7, if this condition satisfies, then I register my ML model to model registry. If this condition didn't satisfy, I don't register this ML model to model registry. This is what exactly quality gate can able to do. You can also have automated quality gate at the side of data preparation. So I mean, this quality gate can able to help you to understand whether your data is being prepared, it is clean, whether it is free from outliers or not. So this can able to help you to check that. Okay, so this is how the complete end-to-end MLOps pipeline would look like. But in industry, we do refer to something called a maturity level in implementing MLOps. So for example, any organization who is doing things manually, let's say they are doing data preparation, model training, model evaluation, deploying your ML models manually, we say they are in a level 0. But once you headed into level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, level 4 is the highest level of automation that you can able to implement today. So what we call it as automated retraining pipelines. So you deploy your ML model, we keep on monitor your ML model, and if there is any drift in your ML model, automatically your pipeline will run. Everything will be automated here. Automated data preparation, model training will be automated, model evaluation, model deployment, and automatically training your ML model again, scheduling your pipelines, for example, right? So this is what we call it as level 4 architecture. So in this program, we'll be covering the level 4 architecture projects, level 3, level 2, and level 1. Okay, saying that, you might be having a question. That's great, right? MLOps is great, but you might be having a question. Sharat, I am coming from different background. I'm a data analyst. I'm a data engineer. I'm a developer. So can I be fitting into MLOps? Definitely yes. Okay, so consider that developing a successful machine learning project involves variety of experience and requires extreme collaboration among a team. That's what exactly MLOps is all about. So the roles can be different in many different organizations. There's no doubt about it. So for example, data analysts, data engineers, data scientists, or maybe applied scientists, DevOps engineers, ML engineers, developers, MLOps engineers. They are all in a pipeline basically. I'm sorry. So saying that, so what exactly your data analyst will be doing? So your data analyst will be working with your product managers. They will be working with the business team. So ultimately they will be working with the user data, and they will be generating an insights from it. So they use tools like SQL, Excel sheet, range of data visualization tools. And along with that, when it comes to MLOps perspective, they will be working on the feature stores. They will be working on, let's say, data version control tools, for example, etc. And similarly, data engineers, they will be working on the infrastructure to collect, transform, pre-process your data. They will be working on data version control tools. They will be working on data engineering side. They will be working on feature stores, for example, etc. So, and they will be also working with tools like Hadoop, ETL, for example, for building data pipelines. So then comes a data scientist, is someone who builds a final end product. I mean, builds an ML model, but not everything, the pipelines, everything, but he will be part of that particular pipeline, right? So along with that, then comes applied or maybe research scientist, but you cannot expect this roles in every organization, especially organizations who are working on a cutting edge technologies. You can see this role like a Meta, Facebook, right, or maybe Google. So then comes ML engineers or DevOps engineers. So usually in AI industry, we don't call it as DevOps engineers. We either call it as ML engineers or MLOps engineers. So what exactly our ML engineers will be doing? So their work will be also overlapped with data engineers, but they largely focus on the ML models and related infrastructures. Ultimately, what our ML engineers will be doing, they will be taking a model that is developed by data scientists, they go ahead and deploy that to the production at different stages we do have. So then comes our developers. Developers are someone, we can say, the last piece of a puzzle. They integrate everything which is developed by others in a main application. They build client-side web apps, Android apps to integrate everything, right? So then comes our MLOps engineers. MLOps engineers are someone who builds this complete automation. So how does your architecture is going to look like in AWS? Whether we're going to use Azure or GCP or open source tools like Docker or Kubernetes or Kubeflow, for example, right? Okay, here we go. I'm talking about various different tools, right? I'm just splitting out all the tools from my mouth, but let's try to understand the different tools for MLOps that we do have, right? So there are a lot of tools. Obviously, there is outside in the market, right? So here we go, the list of tools that I have listed, pretty much famous tools, but I didn't list all the tools here, but it gets you better clarity. Okay, so let's try to understand the typical workflow of building ML models. First, we get started with data cleaning, data exploration, then trains an ML model. So then we finally deploy your ML model, right? In order to integrate all these things, we do use all these tools. Okay, so let's get into one by one. So the different kind of IDEs, consider that our data scientists, data engineers, they write a lot of code. They use IDEs like Jupyter Notebooks, PyCharm, or maybe any kind of an IDE, VS Code, for example, right? So code versioning tools, like we want to version a code that is written, so we use GitHub, Bitbucket, or different tools, for example. And for labeling a data, this is something in the side of data scientists. You want to label a data, right? You'll be using range of data labeling tools. For data exploration and visualization, so human beings, we are visual beings. If we visually see something, we could able to understand. Similarly, visualizing a data is really important. We use different tools like pandas, matplotlib, seaborn for that. For feature engineering, we do understand what are features. We use different tools like sklearn. Our feature tool is a commercial tool. Commercial tools are like you need to pay a subscription for them to use it. Feast is a open source tool. Okay, now let's talk about model building, model training. So this is where our data scientists will be using algorithms, ML frameworks like sklearn, TensorFlow, PyTorch to solve various different problems in this industry. And I want to build a quick POC, right, before I'm getting into the production. But you want to deploy your ML model somewhere, you deploy it on a Jupyter Notebooks or POC tools like Streamlit, for example. Okay, so then comes for model debugging and visualization. So you want to debug and visualize your ML model training processes. You can use commercial tools like Neptune.ai. TensorBoard is open source, it's free to use. Weights and biases, for example, it's a commercial tool. For model tuning and hyperparameter tuning, so hyperparameter tuning is like how you use, let's say for example, let's talk about FM radio, folks. Okay, let's say if you want to access FM radio, your favorite FM channel 93.5 red FM, for example. Let's say what do, you keep on tuning of, I'm talking about old radio, not the FM radio that you have in your phone. Just consider the old radio. What happens, there are dials or knobs which we use it for tuning a frequency, right? So you tune, then only you'll get 93.5, you'll get a better audio. That's what exactly hyperparameter tuning also. You keep on tuning your ML model to get the better model. So then comes for experiment tracking. So let's say he will do multiple iterations. Each and every iteration, he might use different parameters to tune his ML model. So those are called experiments. We use range of different tools for versioning these experiments. Pretty much very famous open source tools can be MLflow. Our weights and biases, Neptune.ai commercial tool, we can use it. For model packing, let's say you want to deploy your ML model, we pack your ML model, right? So for the packing, we can use different tools like ONNX, Kubeflow, PyTorch packing, or TensorFlow packing. For model serving, where and all you can deploy your ML model. Possibilities are endless. I have just mentioned few tools. SageMaker endpoint, Vertex AI endpoint in GCP, maybe Dockers, Kubernetes. There are multiple platforms anyway. Okay, for workflow orchestration. So what do you mean by workflow orchestration? A step-by-step process. First, you need to data preparation. Next, model training, model evaluation. You need to architect this orchestration. For that, we use tools like Apache Airflow, Kubeflow, ZenML, Olahai, for example. They are commercial tools. For data versioning, I did mention about DVC, but still there are different tools. You can use Git, LFS, weights and biases still. For model registries, there are different tools that's outside in the market. MLflow pretty much stands first. Our SageMaker in AWS, they have a model registry. Vertex AI, they have a model registry. Vola High, for example. For model monitoring, you need to monitor an ML model that is deployed in a production. Every cloud today, they have an SDK that you can able to use in order to monitor your ML model. Or you can use open source tools like Evidently AI, which I didn't mention here. Feature stores, a platform where you can able to build a feature store. If you want to build an open source feature store, you can use Feast. Every cloud platform, SageMaker, Ola, maybe Azure Machine Learning Studio or Vertex AI, they have their own feature store. So there are a range of different tools today an organization they use in order to build an automation. But let's consider that. You folks tomorrow, you want to work in an organization, but how do you pick a tool as an expert, as a specialist? Let's get started here. So how are you going to pick a tool? So first is, there are open source tools, there are closed source tools. I mean, there are open source, which is completely free. Are you going to pick that? Are you going to pick a closed source tools? What's the difference? Obviously, we know that open source tools are free. There's no doubt about it. And you can able to easily integrate with your MLOps tools. But what happens when you have very few developers who have an idea and knowledge on this open source tools? This could be very much difficult for you to integrate. Okay. Then comes a platform versus a specific tool. So what do you mean by platform versus specific tool? Let's say you want to go for a commercial tool. So there are a lot of commercial tools that is outside in the market. That means you can pay a subscription monthly, you can use their services. Otherwise, we can go for a specific tools like our cloud platforms like SageMaker, Vertex AI, Azure Machine Learning Studio, Kubeflow for you to build end-to-end ML pipelines. Then comes model and production environment monitoring tools. So the kind of a tool that you're going to pick, make sure that you do have, it supports model monitoring and environmental monitoring. It's really must, because you need to also monitor the infrastructure and your ML models in order to make sure that your bugs are documented and addressed in the meantime, right? And then comes security and compliances concern can be another biggest priority, right? Yeah. So then comes model templating and cataloging. So what do you mean by model templating and cataloging? So consider that tomorrow you folks are going to work in the AI industry, either as a data scientist, MLOps engineers, a data scientist with MLOps skill sets. You're not going to work with only one organization. You're not going to solve only one problem. You're going to solve multiple problems for different clients in the organization, right? So are you going to reinvent a wheel again and again? Definitely not. So this is where templating and cataloging that comes into the picture. So what you will be doing, so you will be templating the entire pipelines and you will be reusing the same template again and again by making a minimal changes. Consider that tomorrow you want to solve a regression problem, a classification problem, you want to deliver large language models, NLP models, you can use the same template by making minimal changes on top of it. So then comes model training, tuning, and drift management. So we are talking about an automation and triggering. So consider that here, not the only one person who is working. There are data engineers, data scientists, ML engineers, MLOps engineers. Each and every person has their own roles and responsibilities. Consider that data scientist is responsible for building an ML model. So if your model building failed, we need to notify an data scientist saying that your model building failed. Model deployment failed, we need to notify an ML engineer. So is there an automation where we can able to trigger an automatic triggers for them, so where we can able to notify, right? Pipeline management, what you're talking about. And does your platform helps you to do automation? I don't want to run the code manually, but I want to do data preparation, model training, model deployment monitoring, everything automated. Does the tool offers that feature for you? Yes. Then comes pipeline management, as I'm talking about. So automated triggers basically for your team to make sure that your process is completed, data preparation, model training, model deployment is completed. Then comes collaboration and communication capabilities. So MLOps is all about collaboration and communication, right? So does your MLOps tool offer you documenting commands, questions? Can you able to integrate project management tools like Jira? Can you able to integrate tools like Slack where your team can able to communicate? Yep, those are the things that you need to make sure. Okay, saying that, let's get into the very interesting part. MLOps on cloud. MLOps on a cloud platforms. Why cloud? Do you need to really get into the cloud? If you're going to stay away from a cloud, you're going to lose many things in AI industry, right? Because you know that cloud is the next big thing. Because every organization today, they are migrating towards the cloud platform. Every powerful generative AI models that we are talking about today, they ran on the cloud. You know, the famous open AI ChatGPT, what we talk. ChatGPT used Azure resources to train their generative AI models, and they ran on the clusters of Azure. So today it can be any industry that we are talking about. So let's focus on just three cloud platforms only, right? This is how the market looks like. So obviously AWS leads the cloud platform, then comes Azure, and then comes GCP. Let's focus on these three leading cloud platforms only. We don't want to get into Alibaba, Salesforce, that comes later. So what we will be covering in this particular course, we will be covering DevOps and MLOps on all this cloud platform, AWS, Azure, and GCP. Everything related to DevOps or MLOps like SageMaker, Azure Machine Learning Studio, Vertex AI, and such other kind of tools, Dockers, Kubernetes on cloud platform. And not limited to the cloud, open source tools are really must, because today organizations doesn't only use, let's say, the cloud platforms. There are organizations, even though they're using cloud, they use open source tools like Dockers, Kubernetes, MLflow, Kubeflow, right? DVC, for example, ZenML. I can keep on mentioning that, right? So there are organizations who use multi-cloud. They run their DevOps pipelines on Azure, but they still deploy their models on other cloud platforms like AWS or GCP. So let's try to understand the range of different tools that we will be discussing, that we'll be covering in this program. So one is Git based tools. So why do we need to understand the Git based tools? The importance of versioning your code. So we'll be covering Git. We'll be working on Git based tools like GitHub. AWS has code commit, GCP has Google Cloud Repos, Azure has Azure Repos, or other third party tools like Bitbucket. So we're going to dive deep into CI and CD. What is CI and CD? CI stands for continuous integration, and CD stands for continuous deployment. So what is CI/CD? Let me just put it in a very simplest way. CI/CD is a traditional practice that we follow in software industry to deliver the newer version of your software to the production. It's all about the automation that we use in DevOps industry to deliver your new software to the production. So this is how the workflow looks like in CI/CD practices. Consider that there is a code that is written by your developer. He writes a code, he pushed the code to a code repository like GitHub. See what happens once a new code is pushed to your code repository, automatically there will be a triggers that will try to understand if there is any new code that comes into the picture. When there is a new code, it will automatically start building your software. Consider that in a traditional way, let's say you're building a Java application. That means your final artifact will be a jar file, right? That's a in process. So once your build is done, we will notify that particular people in a pipeline saying that your build is completed. So then we do some testing. Yes, before you deploy your software to the production, you need to do a lot of testings, right? So we do all the testing. If all your testing is passed, then we notify again. Then you finally take your artifact, then finally you go ahead and deploy to the production. So let me just put it in a very simplest fashion here. Consider that there is a very famous e-commerce website. Okay, it can be Amazon, Flipkart, whatever you can consider. There is a pay now button which is in a green color button. So if your customers want to buy a product, they are going to hit a green color button to buy the product from the e-commerce website. Your production has green color button, but you got a lot of feedback. Green is not attractive, red is so much attractive. So what happens, your developer is going to change the color of a button to red, right? What is going to do first, is going to push this code to a code repositories like GitHub. So he has different branches, one for dev environment, one for production. So initially you will be pushing a code to a dev. What happens automatically, once your code is pushed to your dev environment, so here we are using AWS DevOps tools like code pipelines. So here it recognizes that, okay, your developer has pushed the code, it automatically grabs the code, it will start building your software. So once your software has been built, it produces an artifact, a final deployment package. So once your artifact is available, then we take that artifact, then we go ahead and deploy the app to your web server. So initially what happens, we deploy your app to dev environment. So dev environment is an exact replica of a production, but it is not accessible by your customers. You deploy your app to dev because you want to make a further testing. So your internal team comes, they do further testing, and if you're really satisfied, if a button functionality is working, yeah, if it is clickable, then if it is working, then you finally approve, then you approve your application to be deployed to production also. Now after testing in a dev, you deploy the same feature for production. Now your final end users can able to access a red color button to purchase a product. So this is how the MLOps pipelines will also looks like. So consider that here in the same way, consider that your data scientists or data engineers, they write a code, they push the code to a code repository. The first step in a workflow, this is where we will be doing a data preparation, clean, prepare a data. So once the data is prepared, then comes we started teaching a data to a machine, model training. So then we do model evaluation. We test a model, we extract metrics. Let's say I extract my MSc score. Let's say if my MSc score that I extracted, let's say it is 4.5. So here is my quality gate, a condition step. Otherwise, here I write a condition saying that if my MSc score is less than or equal to 7, this is my threshold that I set. My MSc score is 4.5, that is 4.5 is less than or equal to 7. Yes, this condition satisfied. If this condition satisfied, I register my ML model to model registry. That means I have first version of my ML model. In case if this condition didn't satisfied, I don't register my ML model to model registry. So what happens next? I have my first version of my ML model. Then comes the building step. Let's say here I want to Dockerize my ML model. I go ahead and Dockerize my ML model. And now, once my model is Dockerized, then I will go ahead and deploy my ML model to model hosting platform. Similarly, I will be initially deploying my ML model to dev environment. Here I will do further testing. My data scientist will be doing further testing. And if he is satisfied with the model that we have deployed to the production, then finally we deploy the same version of version 1 ML model to the production environment also. Once model is deployed to the production environment, your clients can start using it. Okay, this is how MLOps pipelines look like. So what is there any difference? Like you can ask a question. Okay, MLOps is okay, but we are talking today about generative AI. We are talking about large language models. Is there any difference in deploying your large language models to production? Nothing. So what we call it as LLM ops for that. LLM ops is an extension of MLOps. We do also cover LLM ops in our program, but LLM ops is not a different world. It's an extension of MLOps. Consider that you want to deploy a foundation model. So obviously it's a nightmare. You cannot train your own large language models from a production because you don't afford so much money, the infrastructure, I mean, or as an organization. So what happens, this is where foundation models comes into the picture. It can be the llama from Meta, Hugging Face models, AI21 labs models, or stability AI models. We take a pre-trained models. Always a pre-trained models works outside the box, but consider that you want to train these pre-trained models to work better with your data. Same process. We'll be having a same orchestration. So we'll be having a pipelines for data preparation and versioning. You'll be doing a supervised tuning, which is nothing but you take your own data, you train it, then you produce your own version of your large language model, what we call it as artifact. You version that artifacts on the same model registries that we're talking about, which is on cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, GCP, even if you want to use MLflow. Then we take that model that we have trained, then we again have a pipeline to go ahead and deploy your large language model to production. So we deploy your large language model to production. Then comes the two different things here in LLM ops. One is a prompt engineering and prediction and responsible AI. So prompt engineering is all about the input question that you're going to frame for your LLM model. Based on that prompt, it's going to provide a desired answer. So then comes a responsible AI, which is going to be acting as a filter before it's giving an output to your customer. So responsible AI is going to filter your prompt, and it's going to also filter the response that you got from your large language model. So what do you mean by responsible AI? Consider that. So responsible AI helps you to understand in case if your customer is invoking your large language model with an offensive content. He's trying to generate some offensive content. It will try to filter out. Or in case if your large language model produces as an output as an offensive content, your responsible AI could able to filter that. Okay, so this would be the difference. Okay, so now let's talk about, in order to build this automation, what are the different kind of tools that we will be covering in this program, starting from CI/CD tools. Like we'll be discussing about the CI, all the DevOps tools on every cloud, starting from AWS code pipelines, which is integrated with code commit, code build, code deploy, for example. When it comes to GCP, we'll be covering cloud build, cloud source repositories, or cloud run, for example, along with cloud deploy. So when it comes to artifact registry also, so when it comes to Azure has a complete different set of DevOps tools. We'll be covering the complete DevOps suite, starting from Azure pipelines, Azure artifacts, Azure boards, Azure repos, etc. right? And including Azure test plans. Okay, so what about the open source tools? Yes, in this program we'll be also covering Dockers from scratch, Kubernetes from scratch. Not just limited to that, we'll be also discussing about, let's say, the cloud-based Kubernetes infrastructures. It can be EKS, which stands for Elastic Kubernetes Service on top of AWS, or it can be similar to AKS and Azure, or GKS and GCP. And then comes model management tools, the open source tools that we use for registering your ML models. We'll be covering MLflow from scratch. We'll be getting started with DVC from scratch. We'll be also covering other alternative tools for versioning your data like Git large files. So when we talk about a different range of feature stores that is outside in the market, we'll be discussing about various different feature stores. We'll be talking about feature store that is offered by SageMaker, Vertex AI and GCP, Databricks feature stores. Tekton is a commercial one. You need to pay a subscription. So let's say you'll be talking about other commercial tools like Upswork or Feast, or if you want to build your own feature store by using DynamoDB or S3. So then comes, what are the cloud tools that we will be more focusing on? So we'll be covering Amazon SageMaker Studio for building a level 4 architecture project, Vertex AI and Azure Machine Learning Studio. And then comes the Kubeflow if you want to go completely open source, for example, right? Yeah, so we'll be building a level 4 architecture projects on all these cloud platforms as I'm mentioning. So then comes model monitoring plays very important role as I mentioned, because you need to monitor your ML models post deployment. So here we'll be discussing about the SDKs, a software development kits that is offered by every cloud platform in order to monitor your ML model. Followed by that, why don't you, like, in case what happens if you want to use open source tool? Yes, we do also cover open source tools. Evidently AI is a pretty much famous open source tool. You can do more than one thing. You can monitor your ML model, data drift, what we call technically concept drift. You can also monitor quality of a data, biases, etc., etc. Not limited to open source tools or maybe cloud source tools. We'll be also going through AutoML tools or commercial tools, we can say. Like, let's say there are a lot of commercial tools that is outside in the market. So for example, Isguazio, Volahai, Neptune.ai, weights and biases, for example, they are commercial tools. It's good to know. I mean, they can able to help you to quick to the market. There are organizations, they do also explore the open commercial tools also in the market. Then comes post deployment challenges. What do you mean by post deployment challenges? So this is where what happens after deploying your ML models, after you have your pipelines in a production. So this is where we'll be also talking about this, the challenges that is related to software engineering, challenges related to your ML related, machine learning related, like issues in your ML model. Like you might be having issues in loading your ML model, drift in your ML model, a lot of things, or maybe the challenges that we face in deploying your ML models to edge devices like IoT devices, for example, right? Yeah. So this is all about what MLOps takes in. So what if? Okay, let's get into a quick live demo. It's fun, right? It's time to have some fun right now. So please make sure that we are almost in the mid of our session. Please make sure you stay till the end of this program. So the next part, what we're going to talk about, it's a job. How does a job opportunity is going to look like in the world of MLOps and AI? Okay. So we have already built demo on top of AWS SageMaker Studio. So Amazon SageMaker Studio is a very powerful tool that's outside in the market. One of a tool comparing with other cloud platforms that you can able to use it to build end-to-end ML pipelines on top of it. We have used Amazon SageMaker Studio to build our end-to-end ML pipelines. I have a pipeline that is ready. I'm going to just give a quick overview. So I have a pipeline. I call this pipeline as a demo July 24. That's a name. Okay, it doesn't matter. That's a name of my pipeline, demo July 24. So this is what exactly your SageMaker MLOps pipeline would look like. You will be having a repository. Tell me what is this repositories are. Repositories are basically where I have versioned my code. Here comes the source version control tool. Here I will be using AWS code commit for this reason. So I have used AWS code commit to version all my code. My code sits in AWS code commit actually. So let's go to that later. So now here are the two repositories. So I do have two repositories, one for model building, another one for model deploy. Okay, so then comes the pipeline section. This is where all my pipelines will be running. So this is my pipeline section. I have one pipeline name. I call it as demo June 24. I will double click and I open that. Okay, here comes the status. So you can see it says execution. What do you mean by execution? Let's say if your pipeline runs once, let's say if you're running a pipeline once, it produces one version of ML model. If your pipeline runs twice, it produces second version of ML model. It goes on. Tell me how many times I have executed my pipeline? Only once. That means I will be having only one version of ML model. The status of my pipeline that is executed is succeeded. What do you mean by pipeline? I have made automation. This pipeline runs automatically. Data preparation, model training, model evaluation, and deployment runs automatically. So I have executed my pipeline already here. I have a source code, but I'm not going to get into the source code here. The source code that is written by our data scientist, I'm not going to get into that considering a time constraint, but I'm going to explain the workflow. So here I will be working on solving one of a problem that is related to abalone. So you know what is abalone is? In case if you are a seafood lover, I love it. I love, but I never eat abalone. But similar to that. So, but abalone is a kind of a sea snail. It's a there is a shell. Inside a shell, there is a meat in it. So what we are trying to do here, we are training an ML model to predict an age of an abalone, because based on the age of an abalone, the price is decided in a market actually. So yeah, so we are trying to predict an age of an abalone. So what is the first step in the process of you building this ML model? The first step is data preparation, right? So here is the orchestration. This is what exactly we call it as automation. So data preparation, pre-process abalone data, that pre-process your data, train abalone model that trains your ML model, evaluation, then comes checking the quality gate, then comes registration. All this steps runs automatically. So let's say if I go to my pre-process my abalone data, so here I give all the inputs like your data, the machine that I'm going to use to train my to pre-process my data, algorithm that I'm using to pre-process my data. All those inputs will be here, but I will show you the output only here. So like what is the things that we do in a pre-processing? Like pre-processing is all about we convert your raw data into training data, validation, and testing data. So here you can see that in a pre-processing step, I converted my data into training data, test data, validation data, and train data. All this data that I converted, I saved it in a S3 bucket in AWS. What is S3? S3 is a storage platform like a Google Drive. You know what is Google Drive is? It's similar to that. So I store all my data in my S3 buckets. Okay, then comes the next step in our workflow. This is where I train my ML model. So if I want to train my ML model, again, the input is going to be the algorithm, the input data, training data, validation data, hyperparameters, all those stuff I input, then I get the output. So what is the output do you think as part of a training your ML model? So ML model is the output. So here, when it comes to Amazon SageMaker produces your ML model as a tar file. This is your final end product, but this end product that we have to go ahead and deploy to the production. And along with training your ML model, during the model training process, I have also evaluated a lot of metrics in it. Consider that, okay, here I have calculated an RMSE score and RMSE score on both training data and validation data. So this metrics depends on the data scientist, depends on kind of algorithm that he is using. So then comes what? Then comes, okay, I have a model. I want to check whether it's a great model, whether it is really fit for my customer, for my customer to solve their problem. I want to evaluate it. So this is where my model evaluation steps comes. What do we do in a model evaluation step? In a model evaluation step, we test your ML model with the test data that you do have. So in your model evaluation step, test your ML model with the test data that you do have, and all the test results that I will be extracting into a JSON document. I will be storing that JSON document in a S3 bucket. So what I'm doing, I'm converting into a document. So basically, I will be calculating an MSE score. MSE is a one metrics, and I will be also calculating a standard deviation. These are the two metrics that I will be calculating. I have converted into file. I have stored it in my uh, JSON document in S3 bucket. Okay, then comes a quality gate. So here comes check MSE abalone evaluation. This is the step which actually checks my quality gate. This is a quality gate. So as I mentioned, I'm going to check whether my MSE score is less than or equal to 7. So I have set this threshold. So in case if this condition is satisfied, I will get an output as a true. Yes, my MSE score is less than or equal to 7. That's why I got output as true. Now, if I go to my model registry, this particular step that you're seeing, register abalone model, register model. This step registers a model to model registry. And now here we go. Here you can able to check the actual MSE score that I have received while training my ML model, 4.9. Yes, 4.9 is less than or equal to 7, right? Yeah, the condition is true. That's why my model got registered. Okay, so now as I mentioned, my model got registered. Let's go to my model registry. So here, before we getting into model registry, here you can see we do have something called experiments. So this is where you can see the experiments that is conducted by my data scientist. More than once he do hyperparameter tuning, all those experiments will be registered here. If I go to my model groups, here we go. This is called model registry. I'm talking about the tool that we use for registering your ML model. So model registry are here in SageMaker, they call it as model group. So I have a one model group, I call it as demo June 2024. Okay, let's get inside this. Okay, here we go. Let's guess what you can see. Just use your chat window, try to like, maybe let's see if you can able to guess what is this window is looking like, what information you can able to see. As I mentioned, if you remember the architecture, right? So if I want to deploy my ML model, I don't automatically deploy my ML model to production. So I will be having a manual approval step. Let's say if I want to deploy my ML model to my dev environment, I want to approve. I want to approve by clicking a button in order to deploy my ML model to dev environment. Similarly, if I want to deploy my ML model to production, I want to approve it manually, because it is good to do that, because you don't want to automatically deploy because you don't know whether it's going to work perfectly fine in production or not. So here you can see that, as I mentioned, my pipeline executed only once. I have only one version of my ML model and the status is pending manual approval. That means it's waiting for my approval to be deployed to the staging environment. Our dev environment we can solve. Okay, I'm going to click on my version 1. You can see what happens next. You can see it's currently in a status of pending. So now I'm going to show you how to approve it. You can see towards top right side I have an actions button, and I can see, you can see there is something called update status. Currently it is in pending. I can also reject it, because in case if it is not according to the industry standards, I'm going to reject it. I'm going to approve it right now. Here I'm going to pass the commands. So all test, okay, yeah, whatever I need, I will simply say save and update. That's it. I have updated my ML model. So now it is getting deployed to the staging environment, not for production. Still, I haven't deployed my model to production. So it's going to be deployed to a staging environment. So it is approved right now. So now if I go back to my root directory here, you can see there is something called endpoints here, right? Endpoints is a section where you can find the models that is getting deployed to both staging environment and production environment. So now let me just get into the endpoint. It's going to take some time, but currently it will say no endpoint. Okay, so what we will do, we'll come back after a few minutes, then we will see if there is any endpoint that got created for us. Okay, great. Okay, without wasting much of your time, let's get into the third part, MLOps career opportunities. Okay, so what does your next 5 to 10 years going to look like? Okay, so who can learn MLOps first of all? Who can be part of MLOps? Who can learn MLOps? So are you a data scientist who is already into AI industry? Perfect. You need to learn MLOps. It's must, because let's say if you go back to last 10 years ago, if you have a good knowledge in Python programming, statistics and algorithm, you're hired. But that's not the situation today, because no more organizations are looking for data scientists who can just build ML model, but they want a data scientist who can also collaborate and work with MLOps team, who can able to deliver their models to production. So data for data scientists is must. Are you a data engineer, a data analyst? You want to transform into MLOps? Are you working already in the AI industry? MLOps is must for you. Are you a researcher, applied scientist? Are you an ML engineer? Are you a DevOps engineer? You want to get into the MLOps industry? It's really an advantage for DevOps engineers, because DevOps engineers, they already come from the DevOps industry. They do understand the traditional DevOps tools like CI/CD, or maybe source version control tools, are minimal of Docker and Kubernetes for DevOps. It can be really added advantage for you when you're trying to migrate into MLOps. Okay, so then comes, are you an aspiring MLOps professional or enthusiast? Or maybe if you're a machine learning professional, you want to learn how to deploy your ML models to production. Are someone who want to learn a Docker or Kubernetes, or AWS, Azure, GCP, DVC, Feast, MLflow, Kubeflow, etc. Then you need to learn this MLOps. Are any individuals interested in getting into AI industry or a data? You are the one who is going to be part of AI industry in ML. You want to learn MLOps basically. Okay, let's try to understand some facts, some numbers. Okay, let's get started. So what does an average salary looks like? So obviously the global market is really huge. In US itself, an average salary of MLOps engineers would start from 94,000K, 94,000.5K. So however you want to represent it, it's really huge. But let's talk about India. According to 6figr.com, you can cross verify. An average salary for someone who has a 2 to 3 years of experience start from 26.6 lakhs per annum. That's the number according to the MNCs in India. But let's say if you have more than 2 to 3 years of experience, okay, so you can able to see that your salary percentage might vary like this. Like 10 to 20 lakhs will be around 33% of people's. 20 to 30 lakhs will be around 42,000 of 42% of people who might be getting it. 30 to 40 lakhs will be 25%. I mean, just imagine the range of experience that you might have. You might have 5 years experience or 6 years of experience. Anyone who has more than 5 or 6 or 7+ years of experience, you can also apply for a lead positions in MLOps, like MLOps lead engineer, MLOps architect, specialist kind of a roles basically. Just imagine this lead people are someone who get to decide what tool to be used, so what cloud that we're going to use. They have a huge responsibility over there. Yeah, so obviously there is no doubt about the ML job vacancy trend, because today every organization, they want to implement AI in some way, right? So today we talk about more about AI, and industries hire more people who are interested in AI. And again, especially India is going to be a hub for AI. Already Microsoft or maybe Google, they started pouring a lot of investment in getting, I mean, investment in the AI in India, just to get the just to make an India as a AI hub. Okay, so there's no doubt about it, because it can be an agriculture sector to the space sector, whatever the organization where they have an access to data, AI is going to be there. Okay, but the thing is, okay, do we have a time to get into the organization? Maybe you might be thinking, okay, let me just think for next 5 years, I will have a plan to get into the AI industry. No, you don't have a much time here. Okay, let me just tell you why. Because I would like to explain this with this beautiful slide. I'm not just kidding. Like just between 10 years, 10 years is huge, but you don't have 10 years, or you don't have just 1 or 2 years. No. So, but let's try to imagine the speed of innovation, what's happening. So 10 years is pretty much long, but you can see just in 10 years, this drone is completely replaced this chopper and a camera person. I mean, today, no more choppers, no more camera person traveling, because this industry is completely replaced by a drone. In 10 years, a cameraman and a pilot has been replaced. It's time to upgrade, because I'm talking about why. Because when we talk about AI industry, this is the only industry which is transforming pretty much faster than any other industry. We're not hearing about new technologies in software development, DevOps, or maybe IoT or blockchains or any other industry. But today, if you go to LinkedIn or now or maybe any social media, every day, every week, you are hearing about a new AI tool. But the question is, do you want to be a creator or a consumer of an AI? If you're not going to be both, then you're going to miss the huge piece of a cake. Okay, but how can we help you get into this particular position? How we can able to help you to become a specialist MLOps? This is where our MLOps specialization program comes into the picture. So when are we starting? We are starting our new batch of our MLOps specialization program starting from July 20th, but you don't need to wait till July 20th. I will tell you why. Okay, what is this program is all about? MLOps specialization program is a program for someone who want to become a specialist. This program perfectly fits for someone who has a minimum of 2 to 3 years of experience, or maximum of 18 to 20 years of experience candidates who want to get into the field, even for a beginners. Okay, so this is a 10 weekends program. So, I mean, it's a 2.5 months program. Otherwise, let's talk about a program structure. So what are the timings? We will be having a sessions on every weekends only. Every Saturday, Sunday, we'll be having a live sessions. It's not pre-recorded. It's 100% live session. I will be the trainer. Yes. I will be the one who will be leading you for the next 2.5 months. So the timings will be, let's say if you're joining from India, your time will be 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. every weekend. Or let's say if you're from EST time zone, you'll be from 9:30 to 1:30. Let's say you are from CET time zone, you'll be from 2:30 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Okay, this is the program workflow. Every weekend from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. we'll be having a live hands-on sessions. What do you mean by live hands-on? It is not a webinar or a seminar. No, it is not. So all the live sessions are hands-on driven. I mean, in this hands-on sessions, you'll be busy building live projects. There are more than 10 plus real-time projects. We'll discuss that. So all the projects that I am building on my screen parallelly, you'll be building it on your screen. That's how it's going to work. So every Monday, you'll be receiving an access to the recordings of a live session that you attend. And even on weekdays, we do have a session, but it is optional to attend. We call it as debugging sessions. Consider that during a live sessions, definitely you will be having some bugs, some questions you couldn't able to resolve it during a live sessions. You can able to join this optional debugging sessions. So this debugging sessions are, yes, we do have some fixed time every 7 p.m. It can be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. We'll be having this alternative days based on a past participants availability. But we have some fixed time, but we do have a provision that, let's say maybe you're from US, maybe you're not available in 7 p.m. IST, you can just ping us any time that you want in a mutual understanding. We will be connecting at any time that you're available, making sure that okay, your bugs are fixed and you're error free and question free. Okay, let's discuss more about our MLOps specialization program. As I mentioned, it's an 80 hours program. There are more than 50 plus live hands-on projects. There are more than 10 plus real-time projects. What do you mean by 10 plus real-time projects? Do you remember that the MLOps maturity level that I'm talking about? We will be building a project that is ranging on all the maturity levels: level 4 architecture, level 3, level 2, and level 1 architecture projects. So a level 4 is the mostly making more sound in the job industry, basically. Okay, so as I mentioned, MLOps specialization program is a multi-cloud course. You will be learning AWS, Azure, GCP, not limited to that, open source tools like Docker, Kubernetes, MLflow, Kubeflow, ZenML, DVC, etc. Okay, you might be having a question. So what is the pricing structure for this program? Yes, definitely. So here we made the pricing in such a way that it is most customizable for every person here. So I mean, here every person comes with different requirements. Maybe you might be coming from a non-technical background, but still you want, can you able to migrate to MLOps? Yes, there are possibilities. But you might be a software developer. Can you become MLOps engineer? Yes, you can. But the range of different support that we need to provide for these candidates can be different, right? So that's how we optimize this program accordingly. So we do have 3 different pricing plans. It's going to be fun to listen to this. Let's get started. So we call it as a basic plan, advanced plan, and advanced plus. Okay, so the maximum advanced plan, the topmost plan that we do have, it will be, the pricing structure will be starting from let's say 49,999, the topmost plan, what we call it as advanced plus. Or the mid-level plan, the most popular one, most popular that all our participants love it, is advanced plan, which is costing 43,999. And we do have a basic plan which is costing just 40,999. Okay, why we do have these 3 different plans? What is the difference? Let's get started. It's going to be interesting. Consider that it depends on the requirements from you. Okay, let's consider that you're only interested in upskilling. You just need a knowledge of MLOps. That's it. You don't need any other support. You can go for a basic plan. So in a basic plan, you can able to attend the live sessions. You can able to have an access to the recordings of every live session that you attend. You will be having an access to debugging sessions and other free resources like job updates, interview questions. So in advanced and advanced plus plan, basic plan is also included. Live sessions, access to recordings, debugging sessions is also included in advanced plus also. Okay, but what is so much difference in advanced or maybe advanced plus? Most of the working professionals, they take advanced or advanced plus. The reason is this: there are some premium support features that we offer. So one is called bonus reattendance opportunity. So what is this bonus reattendance opportunity? Is nothing but by registering once, you can able to take our program twice. Consider that you're joining our July batch. Even after you completing a July batch, you can take our next batch also for free. Let's say we are conducting our next batch in October. So you can also attend our October batch also free. So why we need this twice the opportunity? Because let's say most 99% of our peoples who take up programs are working professionals. Sometimes due to their busy working schedule, in case if you're missing any live sessions, you get another opportunity to retake this program again in a next batch. Otherwise you might need a revisioning, maybe you need to retake it, or probably in every batch we might make some updates in a syllabus, maybe you want to relearn the new syllabus, you can retake this program. So this is called bonus rate and as opportunity. So then comes resume preparation is also part of our advanced plan, and 6 months technical job support. What do you mean by 6 months technical job support with resume preparation? So this job support can be utilized in many different ways by the participants. So what do you mean by that? Consider that maybe you are the maybe you need a support in preparing for an interview, preparing for a resume. So we do help you optimize your resume. Consider that you are a DevOps engineer, you want to get into MLOps, you're a data scientist, you want to apply for MLOps, data engineer. How does your resume should look like? We help you bias your resume. You might be having a 4 years of experience, 5 years of experience. So what you need to mention, what not. So we do help you bias your resumes, not just resumes, it can be any job portals. Consider that it can be LinkedIn, Naukri, Indeed, any job portals. We make sure that you get some good quality calls from the organization. Okay, what happens next? So once you got selected for an interview, not for the job, for the interview, but what happens next? So as part of a technical job support, we do something called job description decoding sessions. So before you attending an interview, you can sit for a discussion with me, and we will be decoding this job description. We'll be going through different key skills, what they're looking forward, what kind of a questions they will be asking. We'll be analyzing that. Basically that is the clarity and confidence that is needed for you to clear any interview, right? Or maybe conducting a mock interview kind of a stuff to make you sure that okay, you can able to attend this interview peacefully, right? This can be one way. In another way, consider that you're already working in an organization but you need some support, you need some documentation, your sample code, some consulting, some references to get started. You can also use this technical job support. And when we go to the topmost plan, the only difference is instead of you getting 6 months support, there you get 1 year support. And here comes the pretty much added advantage. We call it as instant access to recordings. So you don't want to wait for next 3 months to complete a program, because still we do have 1 month and then 2.5 months. You don't want to wait for 3 months to complete a program. Do you want to get started in next 24 hours? Yes, we have a way. So people who register for the topmost plan, Advanced Plus, they get instant access to recordings. That means we will be immediately sharing an access to the previous batch recordings. You can get started in next 24 hours with the support from my team. Parallelly, you can start attending the live sessions basically. So that's how it's going to work. Okay, if you want to check the pricing in USD, let's say here is the pricing. Let's say our Advanced Plus plan starts from $749, and let's say our advanced plan starts from $649, and our basic plan starts from $599. This will the pricing for our other plans. Okay, here we go. Here is the surprise. This is specifically only for the people who attended our demo session. So what is this surprise? Nothing but is a special discounts that we do give for very limited peoples that we pick. This offers is only for limited for the first 10 registrations only, but we don't have 10 registrations. We already started registration last 1 week ago itself, because I'm sorry, our registration started already 1 week, but this is strictly for 10 registrations only. What is this 10 registration offer? Is nothing but every first week when we host our new batch, because our new batch is on July 20th, we give these offers, but these offers are only till 1st of July. Still we do have enough time to make a decision and take opportunity. So what are these special offers? Just to make you folks comfortable. So most of you folks are interested in, let's say, registering for advanced plan or advanced plus plan, right? How are we making you comfortable? So let's say all you need to do, let's say you're interested in advanced plan, but you know that our advanced plan will be costing you, let's say 43,999, but you don't register for advanced plan. All you need to do, go ahead and register for a basic plan which is costing just 40,999, but we will be upgrading you to advanced plan for free. So this is strictly till 1st July. For candidates who could able to register for this program by 1st July, we can able to provide you this upgradation. Similarly, our, if you want to get started with the EMI, we do offer EMI starting from 3 months to 24 months. Our EMI just start from 1,700 rupees a month. Are you interested in a topmost plan, Advance Plus? Do you want to get started in next 24 hours? You don't want to wait for next 3 months? Don't register for the topmost plan, because you know that our topmost plan pricing is nearly 50,000 rupees. All you need to do, go ahead and register for, I'm sorry. So all you need to do, go ahead and register for our advanced plan. So our advanced plan is just costing 43,999, and we will be upgrading you to the topmost plan. And then nearly you'll be saving around 6,000 rupees in a registration. And you can also go for EMI, or EMI will be starting from 1,800 rupees a month. You can have maximum 24 months EMI basically. Okay, so why do you think Citron Technology is the best people's? I mean, this is not first time we're conducting. We have been there in the AI industry for a couple of times. So, I mean, we are supported by government of India. We've been incubated in PhD STEP in Coimbatore, and we've been represented ourselves in various international stages. We've been part of AWS Activate program, and we are into two phases. We are also into the products and services into AI industry. So you can also check our testimonials, because don't take my word, please listen to the testimonials of our previous batch participants and participants who could able to crack a job. There are candidates who could able to hike their salary for 100% hike. You can also check their testimonials. I'm going to also share these testimonials in some time. Before we getting started, here we go. Let's discuss about the awesome curriculum that we do have. Then I will be opening a session for Q&A. Okay, I'm going to share this PDF anyway in few minutes. Okay, so I will be sharing this PDF. This PDF has everything that is needed for you. Okay, so go through this PDF. You can learn more about us, who can apply curriculum, program fee, and testimonial. Let's get into curriculum. There are totally 14 modules, 1-4. So the first module covers everything about MLOps. So here we'll be getting into diving deep into MLOps, talking about challenges, and we'll be relating it with other operations that we talk about, like what is DevOps, what is AI Ops, right? What is model ops, what is LLM ops, what is FM ops, foundation model operations, what is GitOps. And more importantly, in this module, we'll be discussing about the case studies. We'll be going through actual case studies of an organization. We'll see how organizations could able to implement this automation. Then comes in a module number 2, we'll be diving deep into the stages of MLOps. It's a very interesting part what we're going to learn. So here we'll be diving deep into the MLOps stages. Let's say we'll be talking about versioning, testing, automation, reproducibility, deployment monitoring. And very importantly, here we'll be discussing about the open source tools. What are the open source tools that we'll be learning, like Kubeflow, Apache Airflow, MLflow, Metaflow, Kedro, ZenML, MLrun, CML, etc. And we'll be discussing about the architectures in a cloud platforms like AWS, Azure, and GCP. Then comes module number 3. We'll be covering Git, completely hands-on. We'll be learning how to work with Git-based commands. Then comes module number 4, introduction to CI/CD. So this is where we also cover DevOps. Yes, we do cover DevOps, but DevOps not for you to go ahead and work for a software engineering DevOps, the DevOps that is needed for MLOps. So we'll be doing DevOps project in every cloud. We'll be covering AWS DevOps tools like code pipelines, code build, code deploy, and we'll be building one DevOps project over there. We'll be covering complete GCP DevOps tools like cloud build, cloud deploy, cloud run, etc. And one project on GCP. And we'll be covering complete Azure DevOps suite like Azure boards, repos, pipelines, artifacts, and we'll be covering one project on DevOps on top of Azure also. Then comes the interesting part, which I love it, module number 5, Dockers and Kubernetes. We will be covering Dockers from scratch, learning how to work with Docker-based commands, how to Dockerize your ML model, deploy it, working with Docker daemon, Docker registries, etc., etc. We'll be building a couple of projects, on Dockerizing your ML models, your softwares, and we'll be covering Kubernetes from scratch, and we'll be also working on project on building your ML model and deploying it on a Kubernetes infrastructure. So we do have 2 modules for Kubernetes. Like in a module number 6, we call it as Kubernetes deployment strategies. Here we'll be picking any one of a cloud. It can be AWS EKS, Azure AKS, or GKS. We'll be also deploying your ML models on a Kubernetes infrastructure on a cloud. So then comes in a module number is 7. In 7, we'll be talking about introduction to model management tools. Here we'll be specifically talking about MLflow. There are 2 projects that is planned on MLflow. First is deploying your MLflow stack. Then comes building and training and deploying your ML models through MLflow stack. Then comes DVC will be covered hands-on, how you can able to use DVC for versioning your data. Then comes module number 8. We do have a separate module for feature store, where you'll be learning how to create your own feature store and exploring different feature stores on a cloud, open source tools like Feast, etc. We'll be using a Feast as an open source tool to build our own feature store in this program. Then comes module number in9. So this is where we will be talking about 3 different cloud platforms where we will be building level 4 architecture projects, as I mentioned. When it comes to AWS, we'll be covering Amazon SageMaker pipeline, SageMaker Studio for building end-to-end ML pipelines. Then comes in GCP, we'll be covering Vertex AI for building end-to-end ML pipelines. Then comes in Azure, we'll be covering Azure Machine Learning Studio for building end-to-end MLOps pipelines, the level 4 architecture. Not limited to the cloud, but let's say if your organization want to go completely open source, you want to use Kubeflow. Yes, module number 10 is completely about Kubeflow. There are 2 projects: how to deploy a Kubeflow infrastructure, and the second project, how you can able to run open source pipelines on a Kubeflow. So then comes module number 11. Okay, here comes the MLOps for LLMs or LLM ops. LLM ops is also part of a program, so we'll be also covering LLM ops. We'll be learning about the system design, the high-level system design of our LLM ops. Then comes module number 12. At 12, we do have a separate module for model monitoring. So we'll be exploring various different SDKs that is offered by every cloud, and we'll be picking out one of a cloud platform, and we'll be performing model monitoring project hands-on on module number 12. Then comes module number 13. Here we'll be also covering a commercial tools, AutoML tools over here. Then comes module number 14, post-deployment challenges. We'll be discussing a lot about the challenges that we face after deploying your ML models. And as part of module number 14, also we'll be covering Evidently AI as an open source tool for monitoring your ML model. So in this PDF itself, you can click this register button, you can proceed for registration. And these are the skills that you're going to obtain that's going to master, starting from DevOps, Git, AWS, GCP, Azure tools, Kubernetes, MLflow, DVC, and other such kind of tools that you want to check it out. And this is the tools that you will be working. You can also check this out. And if you further scroll down here itself, you can able to check the pricing for both in INR USD, and you can check if you want to understand even more detail about different features that we offer. You can also check this out. And if you want to check testimonials of our previous batch participants, how they could able to attain a success, here itself, you can click the video, you're able to watch the words from our participants and other testimonials that we do have, how people could able to attain a success, how they have shared their link pages. You can also check this out. Okay. Saying this, I'm going to quickly share the link. Then I will be getting back to the demo that we are talking about. Then I will be opening the session for a Q&A. That's it. I'm going to just take a few more minutes, then we will be getting started. Okay, here are the few links that you need. The first link is actually for the registration. The second link where you can able to download the curriculum, the same PDF that I do have. And the third link, you can also download some free ebooks. Yes, we are giving away some free ebooks regarding MLOps. And below is my contact number. I would recommend you to call me anytime. Maybe you might have further questions. You might need some recommendations to understand more. Can it fit for you or not? You can reach me out in this both the numbers. I will be having my phone open for you all the time to call me. Okay, so I'm going to share the links to your chat window. I've shared the link. The first link, as I mentioned, for registration. So by clicking the first link, you'll be redirected to our landing page. Yeah, this is how the page will look like. So here is this landing page. Again, you can go through complete details about a program, the curriculum. Yeah, so every testimonial itself I'll share. If you scroll down, you can listen to all the testimonials from our participants here. Yeah, the testimonial videos are available. So if you want to register, all you need to do, click register now button and just fill in your information, for example, and enter your phone number. Yeah, then click next. So you'll be redirected to our pricing page where you can able to pick different plans. Let's say we have 2 Indian participants and international participants. If you want to go through Indian payment gateways, just select the plan that you're interested in. Okay, are you interested in advanced plan? Click on register now. Again, enter your email and the phone. Click proceed to pay. So once you're done with the registration for advanced plan, you will be upgraded advanced plus. This upgradation will happen internally, and so we'll be using Razor Pay as a payment gateway. So we are a trusted business. Citron Technologies Private Limited is the company which conducts this training. So you can able to pick any different option here. So we do like UPI, EMI option. Are you going to go for a pay later option also? Want to convert your payment into multiple installments? You can go with that. if you want to choose international payment gateway, just you want to pay it in dollars, you can just select the pay now button, enter your details, phone number, and yes, you have a two options. You can pay it PayPal, or you want to pay for you want to go for payment also. Okay, here we have Madhav is asking, I don't see offers. So this free upgradation offer that I'm talking about, Madhav, it happens internally. So what I'm talking about, let's say you're interested in advanced plan, sorry, the topmost plan, that is advanced plus. Register for advanced, don't register for advanced plus. If you register for advanced, you will be upgraded to advanced plus plan. So how do you know that you have an advanced plus plan? That means the next 24 hours you'll be having an access to the recordings. That's how it's going to work. Okay, so more about our program in few minutes. Let's go back to our SageMaker studio, and let's try to enjoy your demo for a few minutes. Then I will open a session for Q&A. What are you seeing in my screen right now? Okay, so you can see that you are seeing a SageMaker studio endpoint. Okay, so what you are seeing currently, you can see the name demo June 24 staging. That means currently the model got deployed to the staging environment. So yes, we have successfully deployed our ML model to a staging environment. As per our slides, now we have deployed your ML model to staging environment. So now further, we'll get started. So now my model has been deployed. Now let's invoke this ML model. So I want to generate some predictions. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to copy my endpoint name. The name of my endpoint is demo June 24. I'm going to go to this simple script, the Python script that I've written. I'm going to replace my endpoint name here. And this is my sample data, because how do you make a predictions? You have a model, you need to input some sample data, then only it can generate predictions, right? Here is the sample data I'm inputting, and here I invoke my ML model. So let me just mention that here. So here I'm going to call SageMaker runtime. I'm going to mention a region in which location I have deployed my model. Here I load my test data. Here I call SageMaker runtime invoke endpoint. That's how I call my ML model. And here I input my payload, the actual test data. Here I generate a predictions, and here I print the age of an abalone. Let's see if we can able to invoke that. Tick tick one. Yeah, here we go. It says the age of an abalone is 9.4. That's the age of an abalone. So we are basically predicting an age of an abalone. So now I could able to successfully invoke my ML model that I've deployed to my production. So now, sorry, to the staging environment. So now let me show you how do I deploy the same ML model to my production right now. So now my dev deployment is done. So now how do I deploy to the production? If you want to deploy your ML model to the production, you need to go to something called code pipelines in AWS. So as I mentioned, code pipelines is part of DevOps tool. We'll be using the same CI/CD tools on AWS. We'll be using code commit, but we'll be converting a code commit to work for MLOps. Here you should possibly see that I will have couple of pipelines that will be running currently. Let me just refresh. Yeah, so here we go. You can see that I have two pipelines. One pipeline for model building, to build, train, and register my model. I have another pipeline for model deployment. You can see my model deployment pipeline is still in progress. I will get into my model deployment pipeline. This is how your pipeline looks like. I have a source pipeline where I'm getting a source code, and I have a build pipeline. This is where I will be building my model. Maybe I want to Dockerize, I want to format that into different file. And here comes the final deployment stage. Before deploying, if you want to do some testing, here is a test stage. I want to do some further testing if you wish. And finally is the approval stage. As I mentioned, still if you want to deploy your ML model to production, I want to approve it. I want to approve it. So let me just show you how I'm going to approve my ML model to be deployed for the production. So here, if you want to approve your ML model, I'm going to click this review button. Similar to how I approved the model to be deployed for staging, I click approval. I would say all test okay. I mean any command that you want to mention, and I will simply hit submit. That's it. So now I've approved my ML model. Next, in few minutes, my model get deployed to the production. Okay, that's it. So again, it's going to take some time to deploy your ML model to production. Here we can able to check the status in a few minutes itself. Okay, you can see that now your ML model is getting deployed to the production. It says creating. right? Yeah, great. That's it. So now it's time for a Q&A. Now it's time to understand more about you folks. To let's discuss. Okay, let's have a quick chit chat. So you can do mention your question in a chat window, or you can also unmute your mic. Let's have a live conversation. So go ahead, ask your question. In the meantime, I'm also going through the chat. I'm just going to also extract some of the questions that we do have in the chat window. Okay, so Aditya is asking a question, but our Indian market is down presently. Definitely not, Aditya. So especially maybe if you're talking about other sectors of IT, probably, but not an AI industry. So basically, recently Microsoft and maybe Google, they have announced so a lot of investment towards an AI industry. And again, let's say when it comes to Indian government, also the new Indian government that we have formed, they have a lot of good policies into AI industry. So definitely AI industry is in a right position right now. So where a lot of innovations is happening along with classical ML model development till generative AI models that we are talking about. Yeah. So go ahead, please do mention your question in a chat window. I'm going to answer all your questions. Feel free to unmute your mic and you can also talk to me. If you're facing difficulties, if you're in talking me, you can also let me know. I guess you should be audible when you're talking. Yeah, so microphone is good. So go ahead, ask your question. I'm going to spare a few more minutes. Yep, here we go. Sat Kumar is asking a question: how ML and MLOps different terms in a salary and career growth? Okay, so when we talk about ML or ML engineering, Sat, so ML engineering is all about, let's say, the deployment of your ML models, basically. So let's say our ML engineer majorly focusing on, let's say, taking a model that is developed by our data scientist, and you'll be going ahead and deploying his ML models to production, basically. So usually in many organizations, you'll see ML engineering as a different role, and sometimes you will see ML data science plus ML engineering will be both. But there are organizations who have a separate ML engineering roles also. But let's talk about MLOps engineering. So definitely MLOps engineering, they get some more salary than let's say if a data scientist doesn't have any MLOps skill sets. So definitely our MLOps engineers will be earning a more salary. So what people say that, let's say if you have a skill sets of MLOps and LLM ops, so you can able to hike the minimum hike can be a 58 percentage, can be the hike that you can able to expect. That's a minimum. But if you go ahead and check the testimonials of our participants, there are the stories they could able to get 100% hike also. Yeah. So an average salary in India currently for MLOps engineers is starting from 26.6 lakhs according to sixfigure.com, uh, for an average of 2 to 3 years of experience candidates, let's say. Yeah. Okay, so Vikram asked the question here: do we need to have a knowledge of, let's say, deep learning frameworks like TensorFlow or PyTorch? Good question. Let me just answer that. Okay, this question applies for anyone who going to work as an MLOps engineer. Let's say you want to work as, you might be a DevOps engineer. You might be having a question. Okay, if I'm a DevOps engineer, I want to transform into MLOps. Do I need to learn data science? Do I need to learn these algorithms? Probably not. So way it works is like this. Okay, consider that you are a DevOps engineer. Let's discuss in the perspective of DevOps. Consider that you are a DevOps engineer, but you want to work in a DevOps industry. But as a DevOps engineer, you don't develop a code. There is a software developer, someone who writes a code, who develops a code. But as a DevOps engineer, you cannot say, I have no idea what my software engineer is doing, what kind of a code is writing. If you don't know that, you cannot build your software, but you will have an idea whether he is using a Java, Node.js, Vue.js, whatever it is, right? So the same thing applies here in MLOps also. Let's say consider that MLOps engineers, it does not mandate that you want to become a data scientist, you want to learn data scientist. No, there's no requirements like that. So basically, data scientist is someone who builds an ML model, and ML engineers is someone who takes a model and deploys it. MLOps engineers is someone who builds an automation. So mostly MLOps engineers, I would definitely not going to say that without any programming experience you can become MLOps engineers. I will never going to say that, because without programming experience it's really difficult to survive, right? But consider that your data scientist if you're going to say that I am a data scientist, I want to become an MLOps engineer. Do I want to learn TensorFlow, PyTorch? Definitely. If you want to become a data scientist, but along with MLOps skill sets, you need to be really expert in Python. You need to have a data science skill sets, statistics, probability, ML algorithms also. But if you're going to apply for MLOps engineers, probably not. If you have knowledge on any programming language, it does works. It will be helpful for you, but you don't need an expertise like a data scientist, right? But there is another catch here. But usually DevOps engineers, they ask this question, okay, Sharath, I'm a DevOps engineer, but I have some minimal Python skill sets. Can I join this program? Definitely yes, 100%. But still, if you wish to, let's say few people ask me this question, but still, is there any way that I can gain some basics of, I want to expertise in Python, I want to learn some data science skill sets, is there any way? Yeah, but this is purely an MLOps program. We don't teach Python programming here. We don't teach data science here. We don't teach data engineering here. But that doesn't mean we don't build ML models here. We do build ML models from scratch. We do data engineering, we do model training, we do deploy our ML models. But I will be going through, when it comes to the data science perspective, I will be going through each and every line of a code, but we won't be getting into the nuance of how this algorithm is working, all this stuff. But if you have an interest of exploring or gaining some basics of Python and gaining some basics of data science, here how we can able to help you, because we are not the organization only conducts MLOps trainings, but we are into data science cloud certifications also. There is something called add-ons we do provide. What is this add-ons? These add-ons are provided based on a request only. uh, it's called add-ons. Add-ons are basically like people's who want to gain some basics of Python or some statistics and probability and data science. We grab some of the resources from other trainings that we do have, we give it for free. There's no additional cost for that, so you can able to explore Python or maybe some of the basics of data science. Especially few DevOps folks, they used to ask it, which I know that. That's why we came with this add-ons. We give it for free. That might help you to gain some more basics actually. Okay, so that's how it works. So when it comes to MLOps engineer, it's not mandate that you need to have a data science skill sets. Similar to, as I mentioned, you are a DevOps engineer, but you cannot say I have no idea what my software engineer is developing. In the same way, as a MLOps engineer, you cannot say what your data scientist is doing, MLOps engineer is doing. You need to have an idea. You need to understand the workflow. That workflow, that idea, you will be definitely understanding when it comes to the MLOps specialization program, because we build ML models here. You do understand the workflow. But if you have an additional interest, you want to learn more data science, but it's out of a scope, it is not mandate even. But you can grab our add-ons, which can really helpful for you. Okay, yeah, that's a thing. Okay, I will go with second question. Vikram asked a question. I'm a data engineer, but also work as a DevOps engineer. That's great. It's an added advantage, Vikram, I would say, because in, let's say, it works in both the way. See, consider that in the standard MLOps engineering role will be, let's say you'll be building pipelines, you'll be working on ML files, you'll be working on a tools like Docker, Kubernetes, ML, or maybe DevOps tools, and some of the MLOps tools like ML Flow, Kubeflow, all this stuff. But it depends on an organization. Even Vikram, I will see that I can see there are MLOps job roles. In some of the MLOps job roles, they also include, okay, they are also looking for some data engineering skill sets. Even if you have ETL skill sets, you have a knowledge on some streaming services like Apache Kafka, Apache, maybe AWS Kinesis, definitely it will be an added advantage. So for you, and along with the DevOps skill sets for you, even you make you make your journey quick to the market. That means, so even say DevOps engineers who have come from DevOps engineering background, they already expertised in CI/CD, source version control. So you can quickly go to the market because you do understand the MLOps concepts easily. Okay, Dilip asking a question here. How would 15 years of experience as a software developer, engineering manager shift can into MLOps? What would be the fresher in MLOps? What would be able to check an interview for a big package? Okay, it's a good question. So let me answer that. Let me have some sip of water before that. Okay, good. So how would 15 years of experience as a software developer forward slash engineer manager shift your career to MLOps engineer? Would that be a fresher in MLOps? Definitely not, Dilip. So what Dilip is asking, I have a 15 years of experience in software development. If I get into MLOps, will I be demonstrated as a fresher? May not be. Here is my recommendation. Consider that. So this question can be related to other folks also. Consider that you are a DevOps engineer. So as a Dilip, you are a software developer, but still, I believe as a software developer, still you understand the DevOps concepts, right? So you might be a data engineer, you might be a DevOps engineer. Consider that you want to get into MLOps, but you already have some experience in your existing organization. But will I be considered as a fresher? Definitely not. There's no necessity for that. Consider that I will explain in the perspective of DevOps. Consider that you are working as a DevOps engineer, but you worked as a DevOps engineer, but you do have a good clarity on the building DevOps pipelines, all this stuff. But after upskilling in this MLOps specialization program, what my recommendation for you is, so how can you, because few people say that, okay, can I demonstrate few experience and few more years of experience in MLOps engineering in your resume? Yes, definitely you can do that. But at the end of the day, you need to validate yourself in the interview saying that you do have a skill sets. But as a DevOps engineer, you can also demonstrate in a way that still you working as a DevOps engineer, but you did supported some of your projects in your organization which is into ML, but your role is DevOps engineer itself. But you did support building pipelines. You worked with same DevOps tools by integrated some of the MLOps tools like ML Flow or some of the cloud-based tools to deliver ML models. You do have some hands-on. So there are ways, obviously, how you can able to demonstrate. So consider that you are a data engineer. Data engineers are part of AI industry already, right? You build data pipelines for prepare and transform your data. That really applies in MLOps engineer. Consider that you might be data scientist or ML engineer, you're part of AI industry. It's not a big deal for you to demonstrate your experience, obviously. So what we do, especially Dilip, when it comes to this resume preparation or job descriptions program, first we analyze. Let's say I'm going to analyze Dilip. I will check the resume. I will check what are the skill sets you have. So then I will give a insights to bias your resume, because so you have 15 years of experience. Like, this program can be perfect fit even if you go to apply for a fresher, it fits for you, or even if you want to apply for lead positions in MLOps, like MLOps lead, architect, specialist kind of roles, also definitely fits for you. But the standard of a resume should be like that, and level of interview that you're going to face, it's going to be according to that, right? Because the fresher interview, or maybe the candidate who has more than 10 years of experience, that interview is going to be completely different, right? Yeah. So that's why we need to add a value. So Madhav says, I have already registered. That's awesome, Madhav. So please give me some time after completing this program. I will also officially confirm my side. So obviously, if you're done with registration through the links that we have shared, you should also receive the confirmation email from us. But anyway, I will officially confirm you. I will DM you through your WhatsApp saying that your registration is confirmed. In case if you're registered for advanced plan, probably next 24 hours, as I mentioned, my team will be sharing an access to recordings, and I will also ping you. I will give you the guidelines how you can get started immediately. Okay, next 24 hours itself, you can get started. Okay, great. Okay, Vikram is asking a question. Will you provide an environment for hands-on? Great question. So how you going to perform hands-on? Like, what about the access to the cloud platforms? That's what exactly Vikram is asking. Let's say, yes, we'll be working on Azure, we'll be working on GCP, we'll be working on AWS and open source tools also. So what happens here? Every candidate, they will be creating their own free trial accounts. See what happens? Every cloud, they provide free trial. Okay, so AWS provides 1 year free trial. Azure and GCP, they provides credits for a couple of months for us to explore those cloud platforms for free. So those free trial accounts would be more than enough for us to explore in this particular program. So even after you completing this program, so this cloud platforms would be more than enough for you to practice, but not for the production. Because here, just remember that you're not here to learn, not for doing a business with a free trail. You cannot do a business with a free trail. You can learn for any learning perspective. You can use a free trail, but when it comes to the open source perspective, like we will be running couple of resources on top of your laptop. If you ask, okay, what would be the laptop configuration? Any minimal laptop configuration, minimum of 4 GB RAM, with any operating system would work. Windows, or you have a Mac or Linux, doesn't, it's not a problem at all. Yeah, but if you have both PC, let's say I have Windows and I have both Mac, which can I pick? Better you can pick Windows itself, that's not a problem. But if you have Mac or Linux, even though that's not a problem, we do have candidates always with that. Okay, okay, I'm going to spare a few more minutes. uh, I will see if there is any other question. So feel free to unmute your mic if you want to talk to me. Okay. In the meantime, I'm going to answer a few more questions. You can check my screen. My model has also got deployed to the production. That's great. Okay. Now, in the same way, what I'm going to do, I'm going to invoke my ML model that has got deployed to the production. Okay. I'm going to copy my production endpoint name. I will go to the same script. All I'm going to do, I'm going to replace my endpoint name. So if I replace the endpoint name, it just connects to that and it makes an invocation. So I do expect the same predictions because the same age I will get, because I have deployed the same ML models to the production and for staging. I do expect the same predictions, obviously. So now I am invoking the ML model by hitting run button. Yeah, here we go. I get the same predictions. 9.4 is the age of an abalone. So this is about Amazon SageMaker Studio end-to-end L project. Yes, there is a source code for the side of a data scientist. That repositories are here. So here is the source code, but I'm not going to discuss about the source code because it will take another 4 hours to complete that in detail. But this is a repository anyway. Yep. So this is about the SageMaker Studio. In this studio, you can also access a lot of jumpstart models. Let's say if you want to get started with large language models, like Meta has Llama, you know that Llama based large language models if you want to get started. So we will be going through all this hands-on. I mean, we'll be going through building pipelines, demo. I mean, we'll be also exploring this jumpstart models during the program. It's going to be quite fun. Just remember that we will be exploring all those 3 cloud platforms in the same way. It's going to be more fun. Okay, saying that, I'm going to share the registration links once again to the chat window. Here we go. The first link is for the registration. The second link where you can download a curriculum. And the third link, you can download the free ebooks. Here is my contact number. Please do call me. Get some insights and then you can make a decision for registration definitely. If you have still more questions to ask. Okay, I'm going to scroll up. I will see if there is any questions. Okay, Pushkar asking a question. Will this cloud platform requires a subscription? Definitely not. This cloud platform works on a pay as you go, Pushkar. Like when you're working on our program, you will be using a free trial option. That means you will be paying no bills. And even though if you're getting if you're getting some bills, that's not a problem because there are some tricks and ways we can able to waive these bills off. Okay, I'm going to check. Okay, Okay, so Pushkar is also asking a question. So you, let's say, what about the tools like data engineering tools like AWS Glue, Data Factory? So that is completely out of the scope, Pushkar, because this is a purely an MLOps program. Because here we will be not teaching data engineering. So I do understand that what you're talking. So data engineering is all about building a data pipelines. So consider that first of all, you need to harvest the data for your data science workloads. That is done by a data engineer, not an MLOps or someone who is going to work on MLOps. That is out of a scope basically. But we will be doing data engineering in this program, but it is out of a scope for this program. But even though if you go ahead and check the MLOps engineering job roles, those tools will be a bit of an out of a scope. So Rahul says, can you please share the image in which you cover all the tools? Okay, so like Rahul, you will be receiving an access to this recordings of this session by tomorrow. You can go through that. Yes. Okay, so Rufta asking a question, can we deploy a POC model in production? I have showed you both, Rufta. I have showed you both how to deploy a ML model to the staging and production. Perfect. Let me just check. Okay, we have another question from Neeraj. Okay, so Neeraj is asking if we study a Python part along with ops, then the scope of our MLOps will increase, I guess, correctly. So will there be a role meeting this current scenario? Also, we can explore a good salary. Definitely, that is true. So like here, let's say if we take two things in a plate, data scientist as a role in one hand, MLOps engineer as a role in another hand. Data scientists need in-depth knowledge in Python, statistics, probability, and data science, obviously. But MLOps engineer, if you have some basics understanding of Python, you can definitely get started with this particular program. Yeah. So will there be a certificate of attendance of this? Definitely yes. We will be giving an official certificate from Cytron Technologies, which you can share it in a LinkedIn. As a credential, you can share it in a LinkedIn, and it can demonstrate with your stakeholders. I mean, to your interviewers. Definitely, that would be an added advantage. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to check if there is another questions. Okay, so okay, here we go. So what are the CI/CD pipelines? I'm not asking for the full form. Okay, so we covered it. So can I get the recordings? Yes, you'll be getting recordings. Perfect. Okay, folks, once again, so please go ahead and register for this program, especially for this offers. Yes. So consider that if you want to save your time, because time kills people's, obviously, let's say competition is going to be huge tomorrow, because if we wait for tomorrow, you'll be having a lot of people's along with you. So our program is designed in a such a way that learn fast and get into the market fast. So this is where our advanced or maybe advanced plus plan can really help you get into the market. So go ahead and register for our advanced plan today and get upgraded to the advanced plus. So the difference between a basic and advanced is just 3,000 rupees. And to get an advanced plan, once you register for advanced plan, you'll be upgraded to advanced plus. That means you can get started today itself. Go through that, the recordings, and we are there to help you on the way. And start attending the live sessions from July 20th with our live sessions. And this particular offers that we're talking about is limited to 10 people's only. We have already started registration, so I would say -1, because we have few registrations, minus few seats because we have few more registrations already done through this demo session. So this offers are till 1st of July only, because we cannot definitely afford this free upgradation. That's why we're giving it for first time registrations only. After 1st of July, still you can register, but whatever the plans that you register, you'll be staying in that plan only. So if you want to climb this offer, go ahead and register for the plans that you're interested. Are you interested in middle plan, which is advanced plan? Register for basic. In that way, you'll be paying only 40,999. That means you'll get upgraded to the advanced plan for free. Or you are interested in the topmost plan, go ahead and register for advanced plan only, which is costing 43,999, and you'll be upgraded to advanced plus plan for free. So if you want to check the EMI options, go ahead and check the registration link that I shared you. You can get the clarity of what is the EMI option for your registered bank. For example, if you click pay now, okay, so yeah, you can check the EMI options for all the banks. As I mentioned, you can choose an EMI option starting from uh, 3 months to maximum of 24 months. Yeah, we do support all the major credit cards here. Yep, you can just check that. Okay, thank you so much. I don't see any other questions. I will spare few more minutes. If you have any questions, go ahead and ask me. In the meantime, I'm going to play the testimonial from our previous batch participants who could able to succeeded in our I mean, after placing in a job. Let me just try to play it. I don't know whether, yeah.
So maybe you can just give some idea about what is that company that you applied for, so then we can talk about the ML engineering job role what they are asked for.
So I applied for the AI/ML or artificial/machine learning engineer.
Okay.
So there also cloud part also there. So
Okay.
they require cloud part and Docker.
Okay.
So they asked me question related to Docker.
Okay.
To Kubernetes. And on basis of AWS, they asked me the full CI/CD pipeline,
Perfect,
how it works,
Okay.
and how one question there is how we stop CI/CD pipeline. What is procedure for stopping? It is possible manually or not? So that type of, or they said me how you deploy from dev to production. How can you deploy? Such type of question they asked me that interview. So I give all the questions with the help of your teaching on this, sir.
Perfect. I'm really happy for that. Okay. So I'm really happy for that. That's good. So what's the company name that you mentioned?
So SA Technology.
SA Technology. So based out of?
In Mumbai.
Mumbai. Perfect. So you're also from Mumbai, right?
Yes.
Okay, that's good. So now you're asking questions. So now you have a 20 days of time.
Yes.
So the joining date. So you're asking, okay, can I able to apply for other job roles like MLOps engineer or something?
Yes,
definitely. Please do apply. So even if you get a better package, yes, why not, right? So you can also look for the better opportunity. So please go ahead, as you usually do, apply for those jobs and share us a job description if you need any insights on that. I'm very much happy to provide that. Okay. Yeah, so that's really awesome. And is there any other questions that you need to ask?
Okay, sir.
So now, okay, yeah.
Now onward from tomorrow today, I apply based on my.
Hello, Rahul. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
Okay, so that's why I call you regarding that. Can I apply now on full-fledged on for MLOps?
Yeah, please.
Okay, that's fine. I mean, you can just check out all these testimonials by clicking on a video. So clicking on the testimonials that we do have here by going through this PD and able to explore that by yourself and go through this few more testimonials. The people who have also shared their stories on a LinkedIn, so because you can also find their profiles here, so you can get the more better clarity on how they have shared. So that gets you the sound of a participants, how they could able to get succeeded. Okay, so thank you so much. I guess few things I believe I made your day. I guess obviously like you learn more about MLOps and how it is really shaping the AI world. Please don't miss this program. It's going to be so much fun like this throughout this particular program. So much hands-on, so much knowledge. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day further. Please do call me in case if you have further questions. I'm there to assist you. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day. We'll meet you in our live sessions. Thank you so much. And those peoples, in case if you're registered for advanced plan, so you will be upgraded to advanced plus in next 24 hours. You will be receiving an access to the recordings. Thank you so much. Enjoy your day.